And you know, as well as I do, that means that we have got 10 gazillion things that we need to talk about this AM. And then probably a few more on top of that. Happy Monday. Hope the weekend was spectacular. It was a preseason weekend, I think, for all of us. You know, the NFL teams, they get their preseason. 2 teams get 4 games. The rest of them get 3 games to kind of find their swag, find their style, find their step before they've got to step feet between the white lines and enter into mutual combat for 17 football games to determine who moves on to the playoffs. But they get some time, yeah? They get a little preseason. They get a little warm-up time to go out there, go 4 of 6 for 53 yards, look pretty good, or not do that, whatever the case might be.
That sounds oddly specific.
I wasn't honing in on any one particular player.
Who that? Who that said they're going to beat them Saints?
Probably
Who
everybody.
That? Who that?
Listen, I'm here for it. I'm here for the vibes, but not great, Bob. Not great, Bob. My team sucks.
Didn't know I was going to get to play that so early. But
yeah, my team sucks.
That Tyler Shuck boy, after that interception.
He honestly didn't look bad after the pick.
They
look great.
It's not hard to hit that. I mean, it's a pretty long pass. I mean, that dude was wide open, though. So, I mean, that was good. You got a receiver wide open. Quarterback hit the wide open receiver. Got a touchdown out of it. Why are you so negative?
I'm not negative. I'm just not positive.
Yeah, we have no idea what we're getting with most of these teams because there's a mix of 2s and 3s going up against starters, and then, you know, not all of an entire starting offensive lines out there. Just get little bits and pieces of fun.
Oh, yeah, I'm having fun. Super duper fun.
Like seeing all the Ohio State alums show out. I mean, you know.
It's your boy Trevion Henderson. Touch 1 in the NFL. Goes a hundy back to the crib. Pretty solid start for him.
I've heard Ibuka had a pretty good game, too.
Ibuka looked pretty good. The Buckeyes, everybody who doesn't play quarterback for Ohio State looks great in the NFL. You know? It's just the damn quarterback spot.
How did the Ohio State quarterbacks do over the weekend? How did Justin Fields look with the Jets?
Justin Fields looked, I'm telling you. My dude, he's going to be fine.
Did Houston play? I don't know if they played.
They
did, I don't think that.
Urbi played. Urbi played. One of the things. This is why I say this was a preseason weekend for everybody, and that includes us, because I got to the end of Bet for the Cycle on Saturday at 4:00, and when I got to the end of Bet for the Cycle, went out to the living room where the lady friend was seated, and she was watching her shows because she's a college football gal. The NFL pretty much starts and ends for her with my team. So she was watching whatever she was watching, and I went out in the living room, and she goes, "Is it football time?" And I was like, "Ma'am, until about 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock tomorrow night, it's football time. You got me for a couple of hours now. You got me for a couple of hours tomorrow afternoon. Outside of that, congrats on making it to your football widow era." And so we sat down. We started watching some ball. And I realized that I need more TVs. I gotta get back to the old setup. I didn't take the time to set up the Bro Cave for optimal football watching experience because there were too many games. And I'm like, let's check in on this guy. Let's check in on that guy. Let's check in on that squad. Let's check in on this unit, whatever. And I realized like a couple of hours into Saturday evening with games whipping around everywhere, I got to get back into the flow state, man. I got to get back into my comfort zone because I wasn't there yet. It took me a little bit of time. We only had 2 games yesterday. And even with a little bit of crossover in 2 games yesterday, I still was kind of like, I was a wee bit overwhelmed. I don't know why. There's a lot to take away from NFL preseason week number 1. We had 3 games on Thursday. We had, 3 games on Friday. We had 8 games yesterday, or Saturday, and 2 games yesterday. And there's a lot to take away from it. But I even last night, in fact, here's a thing that Zoe's going to be proud of in a weird fatherly way. I was asleep at 9 o'clock last night.
Good for you, man.
I slept from 9 o'clock to the chagrin of my dearly beloved. I was asleep at 9 o'clock last night. I did not hear when doggo number 1 asked to go out at like 12:45 at night. And 12:45 this morning. And then again, when the other doggo asked to go out at about 2 o'clock this morning, I woke up this morning and she looked at me and she's like, take them both out. They both woke me up. You didn't hear them. All right. I was out. I was zonked. And that is because yesterday afternoon, she asked if I could do a couple of fillets on the Blackstone, which I did. Made ourselves a little pasta carbonara with some fillets in there. Fillets and shrimp. Did a little steak and seafood carbonara yesterday. It was delightful. And then I filmed. I watched film. That's what I did. I went to, checked out all of the NFL games. And the problem with preseason is for a lot of these games, not only do you not know who's playing and for how long, but it can be kind of tough to keep up with that because you got mix and match units all over the place, right? For instance, one of the more frustrating moments for me was that I've told you a number of times, I don't really bet on preseason NFL games because they're wonky. They're hard to get a grip on. But when Dave Canales said starters are going for the full half of the first and second NFL preseason games, when I looked and I saw that Cleveland's starters were not going and certainly not for the full half, I went, all right, Cats -5.5 at -110. That's a good line. Bryce Young getting his first real workout with his new wide receivers. I'll go BY over 1.5 touchdowns at +125. Felt pretty good about that. BY got yanked after 3 series? First series did not go well. Hey, it's the first series. What are you going to do? Second series, BY takes him down the length of the field. Third series, he takes him down the length of the field. McMillan drops what should have been a tutty on, and I mean this, trying not to overreact. That would have been a touchdown pass that hit Mack in the hands off the in break in the back of the end zone. If you haven't seen that throw, go watch that throw because that throw is what Bryce Young is capable of. I'm not saying 1,000%. That throw, and not just that throw, but the setup to it from Teteroa McMillan. I was having this conversation on Bet for the Cycle on Saturday with our dear friend Abe Gordon of 92.9 The Game in Atlanta, who swung by on the show to talk a little Falcons football. We did our NFC South preview on Saturday. So Abe pulls up, and I'm like, all right, what do you expect to see, blah, blah, blah. And then I said, what's the big takeaway from week 1 of the NFL preseason for you? And Abe said, I can't wait for the absolute and dire overreactions, positive and negative, from fans everywhere. Because that's what we do. We see our football team for 10 minutes, and then we go, oh, we're going to suck, or oh, we're winning the Super Bowl, and all range in between. So I do my best.
So you're saying you're overreacting now? That's what you're saying?
No.
I mean, it was a good series.
It was a good series.
Yeah, it was.
Minus the first series, BY looked beyond solid. Outside of the first series, which on the way was 2 runs and a drop pass before the punt, a sack, a run, and a drop pass before the thing got going.
It was all right, and hopefully it improves. But again, I am also keeping in mind not necessarily number one everything. You're not showing everything you can do. It is preseason, but there is also the concern that he was not going up against Cleveland's number ones.
Don't disagree. Don't disagree. You know what I'm looking for if that's the case? Do you look sharp? And he looks sharp. I mean, you can say we're not getting overhyped, too much knee jerk. It wasn't the ones, yada, yada. And that's all well and good and fine and accurate. Let's be clear, and accurate. But if you've got your ones against their twos. What do I expect to see out of my quarterback? Sharp, crisp, understanding of the offense, hit the right throws. That's what he did. That's what he did.
I mean, if I was going to overreact, I would be talking about Patrick Mahomes, throwing one pass and then was done for the game.
Yeah. I don't disagree.
Touchdown, by the way. Yeah.
I don't disagree. Again, Week 1 NFL preseason is prime real estate for us to overreact.
I do have concerns, though, about which has been my concern going into this whole thing. I think that Bryce Young has some awesome weapons. If the offensive line can block for him, he's got a good shot to win some games this year. But the defense still. I mean, I'm glad that Derek's back and everything, but the defense, they still did not look good. And I know it's preseason. I didn't think they looked that good.
I will.
Or is Shador better than what some people thought?
I will start with, I think Shador might be better than some people thought. Honestly, I
was being sarcastic.
No, I know you were. My takeaway was, I don't know this for a fact. I'm willing to bet Mel Kiper Jr. had his pants off for a good point of that Panthers game on Friday. Is all I'm saying.
I don't understand that. Is he a little overweight or something?
Yeah, bless your heart. I'm just going to let that joke sit right there for.
All right, that's.
I'm saying Mel Kiper Jr. was probably sexually aroused by the performance of Shador Sanders.
No, I understood what you were saying. I was trying to get you to get past that because that's.
Why would I get past that? It's a great joke.
That's a weird thing.
It's a great joke.
It is early on a Monday, so I suppose
it's a great joke. We might as well get weird. Here's what I would start with. Number one, no Derek Brown still, which I have been saying for a minute. And this is why taking care of his injury might be the most important job the Panthers have in this preseason, because to me, that defense's improvement is going to be the defense itself, anchored by a guy who, in my opinion, is one of the best 2 or 3 defensive tackles in the National Football League.
By the way, I love Derek Brown, and hopefully he recovers fully from that injury, but that's not always the case.
Derek Brown is one of the best 2 or 3 when healthy, one of the best 2 or 3 defensive tackles in the National Football League. And you can ask most successful GMs, but I don't think you need to go any further than Eagles GM Howie Roseman, who repeatedly says he believes in the concept of building the defense from the inside out and starting closest to the football. Defensive tackle, edge rusher, linebackers, defensive backs. Well, if that is the case, and right now I'm going to have a hard time making an argument that goes against the philosophy of Howie Roseman and what he's done, going to 2 of the last 3 Super Bowls, winning 1 of them. And I would also make the argument that although they're not as outward about their philosophy, when Chris Jones got re-signed by the Chiefs, it was pretty obvious they at least have a adherence to the same philosophy. You start at the line and you build from the football out. And Derek Brown being an anchor of that defense is a big part of it. I would also point out that J.C. Horn did not play in this game. He had that car accident last week, kept him out of the mix. That's your number one guy. That is a guy that I suspect at the end of this year, when J.C. Horn's been in, got his 3 years, that's usually the time that rookies get to sign their second extension or their first extension, their second contract. I've got a sneaky suspicion that at some point next offseason, J.C. Horn is going to sign a contract extension that if it doesn't make him the highest paid defensive back in the National Football League, is likely going to have him inside the top 3. Now, that works on the assumption that he stays healthy and he doesn't miss time and he's out there all 17 games or close to it, etc. But he was unavailable, not because he was hurt on a football field, but because he was hurt off of one. He was unavailable last night. You had arguably your top 2 Friday night. You had arguably your top 2 defensive players unavailable for that game. I would also make the point that this is talking about the defense on Friday and only talking about the defense on Friday. I will make the argument that's actually a very good thing for Carolina. And the reason that's a good thing for Carolina is preseason is meant to be nitpicky. Preseason is meant for us to go, here's what's wrong, and here's what's wrong, and here's what's wrong. And If what we are talking about from the Friday night game for the Carolina Panthers is, the defense came up short, which is fine. If what we're talking about is the defense came up short, despite the fact that they were missing their, I would argue, two best players on that side of the football. What that says to me is you don't really have a lot to nitpick about the offense because we will always nitpick offense first. After the first drive, I was like,
I already said that. I said I'm not worried about the offense. I've been saying that all along. I'm worried about the defense. And again, that was a rookie out there doing what he did against you. Wasn't an amazing performance? No, it was a really good performance by Shedeur. But that has me concerned about Carolina's defense.
It is one game. And again, my take there was not about you specifically.
Okay, because it started out with me talking, and then most people probably thought you were coming at me.
No, I feel like you thought I was coming at you. I feel like the takeaway was.
I speak for the people.
When I said most people are talking about, what I meant was most people who I have read and listened to and heard the pods and all that over the weekend are talking about the defense because it was, in that game, the defense that looked like there was the most to pick apart. But I look at the defense, again, without their best two players.
Shedeur thought the same thing.
I look at the defense without their best two players, and my takeaway from it was, number one, it is the preseason. And one of the things that you will not see a ton of in the preseason, and you can go look at any of the 16 games that took place from Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. You do not, this is kind of an unspoken rule about preseason NFL football. You don't see a lot of blitzes. You don't see a ton of extra pressure. It's kind of an unspoken rule that you don't really bring a ton of heat defensively because you don't want to hurt anybody else's football team. And then B, I do believe there is some aspect or element of, just like we talk about with the offense, you don't want to put all your cards on the table before we get to week one. Here's our stunts. You want that to kind of come as a surprise, and you unveil it as is needed to get wins in the regular season. So Shedeur Sanders really never saw more than 4 rushers, and most of those were from the D-line or in a 3-front from the 3 D-linemen and maybe an edge rusher off the outside. Not a lot of rushes. But I also concur with the great one in that Shedeur Sanders probably looked better than a lot of people have expected him to. I will also argue that he didn't, again, see a lot of extra pressure. Is he going to look? The couple of times that 4 was enough to get to Shedeur Sanders, I could see that the mentality flipped to, I got to run. Like his eyes left the wide receivers. It was less of a scramble to buy time to get a guy open and more of, I got to get the hell out of here. And a couple of times he ran the wrong way, was running backwards instead of laterally and around. There are still elements of concern. But I do not think in the preseason you are going to get a ton of view about what the offense or defense is really going to look like. So we got some takeaways, but we still got a lot to be shown down the line. Preseason games, Alonzo, they're like a bikini. You know?
I think that's a good time to go to break. Ugh, feel nauseous.
4 hours
I like bikinis, by the way. Don't get that wrong.
of elite sports talk radio. Start now. He's Lonzo. I'm Rob. Let's go. It's the Rob Brown Show on the Fan Upstate.
QC.
All right, guys, quick live coming back. Don't go anywhere. BRB. The Rob Brown Show on your radio. It is the Fan Up State. Carolina getting their first preseason game underway on Friday night.
You know, the one thing we didn't talk about, or you didn't, I don't know if you're waiting on it or waiting for Fight Club about the Panthers.
Old XL deciding to throw. Listen, y'all know how we feel about Xavier Legette. Love some Xavier Legette. My guy. Even the fight, like, okay, not the right time when
the punches weren't bad. It's just you're stupid if you punch someone's helmet.
Any punch thrown at a guy wearing a helmet is a bad punch.
It's just not.
It's a bad punch.
Yeah.
Any punch thrown at it. The only purpose of a helmet is to keep a guy from getting hit in the head. I don't even mind the fight itself. Is it the right decision for a guy whose offseason matters a lot? And by the way, because there are a number of people who are now saying Jalen Coker should take Xavier Legette's spot as wide receiver number 2. And Jalen Coker put up a pretty good argument on Friday. Jalen Coker had the touchdown that should have gone to Teteroa McMillan, but he dropped it. They come back, run it to the other side. And Jalen Coker, phenomenal route, great pass from BY, read it, anticipated, threw it in the right spot. Jalen Coker comes up with a tutty, heading to the back of the end zone. There was already a conversation about whether Jalen Coker should move into the wide receiver 2 spot. And the only argument after preseason game number 1 that I have against it is Xavier Legette's size should be an advantage for Bryce Young. Xavier Legette's size should be an advantage for Xavier Legette. But this offseason, to me, is a massively important season for Xavier Legette. This is the offseason that we were going to utilize to find out, is Xavier Legette the guy? Did he do enough work in the offseason to get the hands right? Is he the guy, or is he John Mingo? And we don't have an answer yet. And what I do know that I would, if given the opportunity, tell Xavier Legette. And I think he gets it. I think he knows, because XL, I don't know when the tweet came out, but it came across my feed while the game was still happening on Friday. I believe I read it during the game on Friday, where XL was like, yo, my bad, Panther Nation. My fault, won't happen again, whatever. Football is obviously a very emotional game. And if you think it's emotional for us as fans, yeah, like most of these players take it seriously. One of the most frustrating things in the game for me has always been when people say, oh, I prefer college football because it matters more and it's less about the money. These players take this seriously. It is something that matters to the overwhelming majority of them. And I don't know what got said to Xavier Legette, if anything. I don't know if it was just a matter of the game was more physical and XL wasn't mentally prepared for it, or what. What I do know is this. Xavier Legette is trying to prove that he is not just the most recent miss at wide receiver, of which the Cats over the past couple of years have had a few of them. He's trying to prove he's not the most recent guy that they incorrectly overvalued as a wide receiver. We've seen the ability to route run. We've seen the ability to get open. We've seen the ability to elevate, catch the football. These are all things, especially for a quarterback like Bryce Young. We have seen how important those aspects are to the game. Again, that touchdown, that should have been a touchdown pass to Teteroa McMillan. The reason that play worked was because the in-break, out-break, in-break from McMillan was such a crisp route that not even second, the millisecond, that on the outbreak, the step in, step out, when he cut the outbreak, the cornerback defending him opened the hips to the sideline, McMillan cut to the underneath. And if you haven't seen it again, I'm begging you to go watch this throw, because I saw it in live action. When McMillan hits the outcut, gets the DB's hips flipped the wrong way, and cuts back to the inside, when that helmet turns around, that ball's already like at the goal line, in the air. Bryce knew exactly how that play was going to shape up, and he threw it, which means that the play style of Xavier Legette can work because combine the size with his ability to plant the foot, make the cut, make a double move if necessary. You fit the scheme, man. Like, your ability flips the field in favor of Bryce Young. But in an offseason, especially in preseason game number 1, in an offseason where you are trying to prove that, A, you were the right pick, that, B, you're the right guy to be in that spot. When you are in that position, when you are in that spot, when you've got that opportunity, I need you dialed in, man. Like, I need you dialed in. I need you at your best. And if you are going to start throwing hands at a guy wearing a helmet in the game that is pivotal, in a game, a preseason game that is pivotal to you proving that you're the right guy for this moment in this team, that's a letdown. Because you just cost yourself at least 3 to 4 drives with QB1 and offensive line 1. And I don't care if it's against the twos. The entire premise of that game early was, can you show that you are the number 2 guy? Can you show that you work in this system? And most importantly, can you show that you can catch the gosh darn football? You know how you guarantee that I can't get answers to those questions? By sitting in your warm-up clothes in the locker room because you caught the boot from the ref. I get it. I'm not really anti-fight guy. Sometimes lines are crossed. The game's emotional. What I am is hurt your team guy. I'm not a big fan of that. And while I think there are in sports, and maybe this is, I don't know if this is against the grain or not, I also don't really care. There are times and places where I think people need to catch hands. Honestly, times and places. I saw a video over the weekend that took place in Australia or New Zealand, somewhere over there. There was this kid, probably like 22, 23 years old, and there was this guy, an old guy, like in his late 70s, early 80s, and they're on the bus. And I don't know what happened to start the whole thing, but it was this kid sitting behind the old guy, and he gets up, and he's like yelling in the old guy's face, and the old guy doesn't move. And then the kid like pretends like he's going to hit the old guy, and the old guy kind of shirks a little bit, again, because he's 80. And he shirks a little bit, and as soon as the kid pretends like he's going to hit the old guy, like 4 dudes from 4 directions get up. One guy, in what I can only describe as like a deleted scene from The Sopranos, one guy in a like suit and tie, but it was like real leisurely look, walks up to the kid, puts left hand around throat, sits him in seat. And Zoe doesn't punch him. Open hand.
Oh, I knew that's what you were going to say.
5 to the face.
Yeah, I knew that's exactly what you were going to say.
To the mouth. All right? And all of a sudden, this kid didn't have no more words. He sat there quiet like it was the back of Sunday school, man. Not a word to be said. The 4 fellas, they go sit down in their seats, and this kid on the video doesn't move a muscle again. And it's like, you know what? As much as Rob Brown is a woke pacifist, some dudes need to just get slapped in the mouth one time for people to help them to gain an understanding of this ain't appropriate. I don't know what happened that led up to XL throwing hands, which is why I'm not going to judge it, because who the hell knows? Here's what I do know. That while maybe that guy deserved to catch smoke, I need you on this team, man. And this was an opportunity in a preseason game with the ones against the twos. This was an opportunity for you to prove that you're the right guy to be WR2. This was an opportunity for you to prove that you are the guy that can help Bryce Young. You are the guy that can help Dave Canales. You are the guy that is the guy that we drafted you to be. And instead, you're in your shorts and your slides in the locker room watching the game on TV with the rest of us. You know what happened after that? Jalen Coker went out there, caught a tutty, showed that he can be an asset to the team. I'm not saying that it's got to be lay down and be a pushover. I am saying in that moment, you've got to think, I've got an opportunity to prove that I'm an asset. I've got an opportunity to prove that I am not a wasted draft pick or a liability. And you didn't do that because you were in the locker room in your skivvies. That's not it, Excel. Love you, dog. Want you around for a long time. You're a content-generating machine. I love you. But I need you on the field, not in the showers, my dude. That's not the time and place. Week 5, you're up 12. Cool, whatever. Not the time or place. Back after this, the Rob Brown Show's on your radio. It's the Fan Upstate. On Track to Life, on one this morning, brother. Great to have you. Brian, welcome in. Good to have you. Who else we got? Steven? Not okay moving the baby girl to college this morning. Oh, you're getting old, Steven. You're getting old. Jersey Joe, good morning, brother. Welcome in. Great to have you, my man, as well. Obviously.
Doesn't get easier, Steven. It doesn't. It even like near the end of the first year, it's still not. It's no.
What's your thought on the 70-yard field goal from Jacksonville's kicker?
I didn't see it. I didn't realize
70 yards and cleared it 70 yards. Like probably had another 2 or 3 on. My thoughts are, Brian, that I would need to see it a few more times before I would say I'm fully comfortable calling it in a tight game if I'm Jacksonville. But, like, now that we know it can be hit, I think that allows you to probably, in tight games, play a little bit more aggressively, right? Because if I know that I've got a guy that can keep me out of overtime or maybe win it for us in overtime because he's good from 70, I can probably open it up a little bit.
I want to see the other angle from the end zone cam. Is there not an end zone cam? I'm watching it now. I want to see how much it cleared the bar. That was a killer kick.
It was a freaking boot, dude.
And it wasn't like nobody was kind of. There was a guy like dove right for the ball, so it's not like they just said go for it.
Yeah.
But just like anything else, and I'm not trying to poo-poo it, but special teams are not been solidified. It is preseason, so the kind of guys that will be rushing that kind of kick are not in there. So you can't count that as a record because it wasn't in a regular season game, right?
No, it does not count in the NFL record book. An 82-foot Bayless fishing boat. 71-pound white marlin. Good Lord, that thing's beautiful.
Yeah, but if Michael Jordan didn't catch it himself.
Well, usually in a tournament like that, you fish as a team.
Was he out there, though? I mean, I saw the story. Was he actually in there helping to bring the thing in? I want video of that.
That's a gorgeous damn
Was he sitting in the corner drinking tequila going, come on, boys, you got it?
I have the Tiger fellas laying this thing. The Rob Brown Show on your radio, the Monday morning edition rolls on. Rob Brown, the great one, Lonzo, and you. How, Rob, do I get in touch with the show? I have just absolute loads of takes, of sharp opinions, of well-crafted thoughts. Well, I'm glad you asked, listener. It's very simple to do so. The phone number is there for you. 844-326-3663, 844-FANFONE. You can text that number as it is the Hub City Spartanburger text line, 844-326-3663. You can also call that number if you wish to do so. You'll get live on the air, 844-326-3663. You can also tweet the radio program at The Rob Brown Show, at The Rob Brown Show. You can also tweet Lonzo at Lonzo on Word if you'd like to get at us in that direction. If you have something a little more long format, you can do it by emailing rob.brown@thefanupstate.com. rob.brown@thefanupstate.com. And, of course, join the live stream as so far Brian has, Steven has, Jersey Joe has, Mike has. We'd love to have you on our live stream. Here's how you do that. You go to facebook.com/thefanupstate, click the like button. You go to the Fan Upstate on X and you follow it. You go to the Fan Upstate on YouTube and you subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can do the same with the Rob Brown Show on Facebook, on YouTube, and on Twitch. We stream live all 4 hours of the show, all 5 days of the week. If you want to jump on board, here's your opportunity. We are talking, obviously, quite a bit of football this day as NFL preseason week number 1 is in the books. What takeaways did we have from these teams? Let's start with the big one. The big one is don't overreact. The big one is every team has played one game of preseason football. The reality is no team has come anywhere close to showing you what they are. I think preseason games are better for evaluation of individual talent, individual growth, individual development, individual progression of the career. This is why I can be excited, say, about what I saw out of a brief appearance from Bryce Young, Jalen Coker, Tetaroa McMillan, than I can about the Panther offense. This is why I am going to walk some of you, I think, off the ledge of going ahead and declaring that the Panthers' defense is still bad. I'm not saying it's not. You put out last year a historically bad NFL defense. We all know that. That's not a secret. That's not jumping up and surprising anybody. It was a historically bad year last year for the Carolina. How bad was it? It was bad enough that in the span of 2 years, you went from having a defensive coordinator that was being looked at as one of the hottest prospects in the NFL's ever-long quest to find the next big deal at the head coaching spot, to let's play this game quick. Name me the Panthers defensive coordinator. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is a dude that a couple of years ago, we were having discussions of should the Panthers go ahead and start preparing to replace the defensive coordinator because this guy is going to be a head coach sooner rather than later. Two, what's his name? Who's that guy? What's his name? So, Ejiro Evero, of course, is the defensive coordinator. A guy that a couple of years ago was being looked at by Denver for a head coaching job, by the LA Chargers before they landed on Jim Harbaugh for a head coaching job, to a guy that last year, even Rob Brown was going, is this the right dude? Right? Is this the right dude? Because there's more talent than we've been shown. But I would also make the argument that when you run as Evero does, when you run a 3-4, your nose tackle's the most important guy on the football field. And they didn't have a nose tackle because, again, Derek Brown has been out more than he's been in with injuries. And if you run a 3-4, it takes me back to my favorite analogy that upsets so many of you for so many reasons. If you don't have the equipment, I don't care how good you are, you can't be successful. That's just how it goes. That's what real life looks and feels like. This is a defense that the last couple of years hasn't had the equipment. I'm not saying it's good if they do. I'm saying there's no way to know. Because when your defense is largely predicated on having a stud in the middle like Derek Brown, if for no other reason than to eat double teams, to make sure that in your 3-4, you are at the very worst matched up 1v1, and more often than not, you are provided with a one-man advantage. When I don't have that guy, it changes up the plan. It changes up whether or not that can even be successful. And unfortunately, over the past couple of years, it is felt like Evero has not been able to adapt to not having him, and in a lot of cases, not having J.C. Horn as well. This is why, coming out of preseason game number 1, my largest takeaway has been, no, the defense did not look like it was going to have a resurgence, even with the majority of the ones. It has been, hey, man, let's see game 2. Do we get Derek Brown out there? Another week of recovering from bruised ribs. Do we get J.C. Horn out there from his injuries after the car accident? Are we going to get him back out there to take away the primary wide receiver on most plays, something that was of limited success against Shedeur Sanders and the Browns on Friday? Then I will feel a lot better about proclaiming, okay, we're in trouble, right? Are we going to see this Carolina Panther team be in the midst of the Cincinnati Bengals? Bryce is going to have to go score 45 a game because we're going to let in 42 a game. I don't know. And I don't think, as of right now, I don't think anybody can know. I don't think we have that option yet.
Just a little bit of a concern in the back of your mind. There's got to be.
I mean, sure, but for the record, I don't think anything is going to change that until we get into the regular season.
Well, expectations are not that high anyway, but I think if it continues from last year and the year before and doesn't get any better, that's what you can expect. And there will be losses because the defense didn't hold up their part of the bargain.
I'm not disagreeing with that. Here's what I'm saying. Anybody who is saying that is what's happening here, I think is preemptive. If you hear anybody today go, oh, you've seen the defensive ones and they're terrible, they're trash, and we're gonna give up 45 a game. Relax. Relax, buddy. Relax, guy. Relax. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying those people are wrong. I'm saying that declaring today, after one game, where the defensive starters played 5 or 6 series is preemptive. It's premature. I'm not there yet. This is the danger of the preseason, especially the early preseason. The danger of the early preseason is not just we as fans or those of us that are fortunate enough to have keyboards and microphones jumping to a conclusion. It's the team consciously or subconsciously reaching the same conclusion and changing things before we really get to see them work out. I am not saying it is going to work out. I am not saying it is going to be better. I am saying that declaring that it's not is incorrect. And if we start to do that, if the team starts to do that, you might start to tinker in ways that are unnecessary. Let me see what this defense looks like with a guy I think is one of the top 2 or 3 defensive players, defensive tackles in the NFL before I say this D-line is trash. Let me see what this team looks like with a guy that I think within 2 years could be one of the highest paid defensive backs in the NFL before I start saying the D backfield is trash. Let me see what Shedeur Sanders looks like in the next 2 or 3 preseason games before I start to say that this defense is trash. Because, hey, maybe, not saying he is, maybe Shedeur's the real deal. Maybe he learned the humility that we had hoped he learned on draft night. I had the hypothesis. I floated it on this show last week. I also floated it on a couple of shows this weekend. I told Sean Levine the same thing yesterday. I was on his show on the Infinity Sports Network yesterday. And I said, here's my Shedeur theory. The Browns didn't draft him in the 5th round because they looked and they went, this guy's going to be a steal. They drafted him in the 5th round because of the situationship that they could put him in. Hey, man, look, we got benchmarks for you. Benchmark number 1, I need you to outduel the rookie we took in the 3rd round in Dylan Gabriel. If you can beat him out for QB3, then I need you to outduel the dude that we selected or that we picked up in free agency in Kenny Pickett. Not a great quarterback, but a guy that's got experience, success. If you can outduel him, then you got to outduel 40-year-old and extreme NFL veteran Joe Flacco. And if you outduel him, you're QB1, just like that. And it could take you the preseason. It could take you all of the initial season, your rookie season. Who knows how long it'll take you. But benchmarks. And by the way, there's no pressure on the guy. There's no pressure on Shedeur. We drafted you in the 5th round. You're not QB1. So I said that to Sean Levine. I said, think about it. You're taking the pressure off the guy. You hope he learns some humility on the way to the draft, and now he starts knocking down the benchmarks. I'll say right now,
I disagree with you on the
thinks,
pressure, by the way. He is Deion Sanders' son. He's going to have pressure no matter what he does if he's on the football field.
That's only if he subscribes to that. That's only if he subscribes to that.
The pressure is there. I mean, I haven't been in that situation, but I got to say that it's got to always be there. Even when you try to push it off and go, I am my own guy, it's always going to be there. Especially playing that position that gets most of the attention in football anyway.
See, I am going to say maybe it would be for you. You're not everybody, and everybody's not you. When I was growing up, and I'll make a quick anecdote because we got to get to the break. When I was growing up, my dad was a big name in our community back home, right? Big name. And it was regularly told to me, like, oh, you're going to make your dad proud. You're going to do this. You're going to follow in your dad's footsteps and all that. And I realized that about 16, 17 years old, I did not want to do what my father did for a living. My father was a mortgage broker, but he specialized in helping armed forces veterans and lower income people get houses. And he was very successful and helped a lot of people in the community. I had no interest in doing that. I hated it. I despised it. And it took me until I was about 24, 25 years of age before I went, I don't have to be my dad. I don't have to do what he does. I don't have to the point that I told him that. I'm like, Dad, I don't want to do what you do. And he was the only one, him and my mom, I can say this, the only one who said, then don't. You don't have to. You're your own cat. Do your thing. I understand that he's always going to be pushed as Deion's kid. But the only person that decides if that pressure mounts and impacts him is him. He's the only one. So my thought here would be, if by playing football, he's able to not think about that and move on and play loose football, He's got the physical talent, and you saw that. Now, it is fair to say, probably too early to say that's Deion's boy playing offense. Probably early enough to say he looked good in the first half against the defense that was historically bad last year.
Yeah, he also missed some open receivers, and as you pointed out earlier, should have thrown the ball away, but instead thought he could run in the backfield and make things happen, and he got caught.
I agree, and there is also going to be a learning curve, as there is for many quarterbacks who play that style of football. You can get away with that in college when you're playing Washington.
You think I'm faster than everybody? I'm out here playing with boys, and then you get to the NFL and find out you are not.
You can do that in college when you're playing Washington. When you're playing an NFL defense, everybody on the other side, even the 3-dep guys, were all Americans in college. Let's take a break. We'll come back. We'll talk some more preseason football, get some college discussion, even a little baseball, because holy crap, the Braves look like a baseball team this weekend. Too little, too late, but they did. All that more coming up after Lonzo hits you with a world-class caliber sports flash.
Speaking of those Braves, the Atlanta Braves offense was clicking over the weekend as they took 4 of 5 against Miami and scored at least 7 in all 4 wins. Series was wrapped with a 7-1 victory yesterday with 9 hits, including homers from Ozuna, Olsen, and Harris II, and doubles from Profar, Albies, and Harrison II. Spencer Rattler got the start for the Saints against the Chargers yesterday. Rattler went 7 for 11 for 53 yards and carried 3 times for 22 yards, leading all rushers for New Orleans. Ricky Towers-Shuck completed 15 of 22 passes for 165 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. Former Clemson quarterback DJ Uiagalelei threw just 1 pass for 49 yards in a short appearance for the Chargers, who won the game 27-13. The Dolphins and Bears finished their first preseason game in a 24-24 tie, which, I mean, come on, guys. The former Longhorn Quinn Ewers went 5 of 18 for 91 yards, and Zach Wilson went 5 of 9 for 96, while Tua Tagovailoa went 5 of 6 for 27. Too many stats, Rob. Excellent as always. I mean, you know. We don't do bad shows. I mean, we may hit the edge of mediocre on occasion, but, you know. At the end of Saturday, if I leave knowing I had fun, then I think I had a good show. So, yeah. And I did. Whole lot of reaction over the music topic, by the way. The one surprise when I went around and asked a bunch of people was Tara's selection, because I hadn't really heard. Have you heard of Driving and Crying? Yeah, that's hers. And I had to go back and listen. I had heard some of their stuff, but only as bumper. I never really heard their. And Mark said Gordon Lightfoot. So I mean, everybody else pretty much picked classic rock. Although Tim actually picked a band I'd heard of. He went with Mudvayne. It's like, okay, so at least you picked. I've heard of them before, so and probably I've heard some of their stuff. I know I've heard some of their stuff.
I mean, I could have gone with like Slayer.
Come on.
Pantera. What?
You got to be in a mood for those bands. I don't think you go, oh, I can't pass this up. It's Slayer. You're not Diesel.
No, I'm not. That is correct.
Daniel Digger!
Our numero dos of the Rob Brown Show underway. Welcome back. Rob Brown, the Great One, Lonzo, and you. 4 of the most electrifying hours of sports talk radio you're going to find anywhere. Available from 6 to 10 a.m. every weekday morning, except this week because we are off on Thursday and Friday. Your boy headed over to Charleston, South Carolina. Spend a little time helping out the sister and brother-in-law with baby numero dos, and completely using that as a excuse to go sit on the beach and drink Mai Tais for a few days.
I hope it doesn't rain. It's raining a lot here.
It's supposed to.
Is it?
Yeah. And I'm kind of listen, I'm very adaptable on vacation.
Will you sit on the beach in the rain?
No, but I will sit in a bar on the beach in the rain. Like, not in the rain, but like
I
if
didn't
it
know
is
if
raining.
maybe you get to, although it's Charleston, I don't know if they allow beach umbrellas or not. But get under the umbrella and just watch the rain fall around you on the beach.
I'm more of a balcony guy in the rain.
All right.
More of a balcony guy. Big dive bar on the beach guy. Like you give me a dive bar with an open back wall that looks out over the beach. Oh, I'll sit in there for days.
Are there classy bars on the beach?
Why would I go to those?
I don't know.
I'm sure there are.
Because the only since I don't go to those things, the only thing you ever mention is dive bar.
Those are my favorite bars.
So why?
Because people are casual.
Okay.
You go into an upscale beach bar, and it's like, you got to be kind of like stuffy and keep it down, and there's like a guy on a piano, and it's like, all right, cool, fun. I like the bars where people are hooting and hollering and having a good time. That's my kind of bar. And you put it on the beach where it's like Jimmy Buffett vibes all day, Like, give me that. If there's a Beach Boys bar and there's a Jimmy Buffett bar, I'm going to the Jimmy Buffett bar all day. Doesn't mean I can't like the Beach Boys vibe. Doesn't mean I don't occasionally appreciate a little bit of an upscale environment. I do. But give me the dive bar all day.
We're into more stuff than Jimmy was, I believe. So, I mean, I don't know. Yeah. I do believe if you go watch a documentary, I'm just saying. Compare the two. It doesn't matter, but compare the two, and the Beach Boys were into much worse stuff than Jimmy Buffett.
I don't disagree, but dig the audience, man. And I guess I should really talk about when I'm talking about the Beach Boys vibe. There's room for Kokomo, but like, give me boat drinks all day long. All right, that's just what it comes down to. So we'll see what ends up happening this weekend. We're going over on Wednesday night. Baby comes on Thursday. We'll spend Thursday helping out, being the go-getters. We'll spend Friday helping mom get back to the apartment and get them settled in and comfy. And then Friday, Saturday, Sunday, your boy's gonna find who's got the best, I don't know, pina colada on the beach. Don't worry, I'll do the research.
I hope wherever you go, they play nothing but Pet Sounds from the Beach Boys.
For the record, Pet Sounds is my favorite vinyl that I own. I love the Beach Boys. I own 2 copies of Pet Sounds. I own one that's an OG pressing, And then I own one that I actually listen to. I'm just a Buffett guy at heart, man. Just a Buffett guy at heart. And as Jacob points out, dive bars are usually cheaper drinks. That goes a long direction. You're not wrong. All right.
Are there cheap things in Charleston? I don't
know about that. Yeah. Cheaper. That's why I emphasize
right.
the in cheaper when it comes down to it. We got to get some stuff in here on the day. Talking NFL preseason football. We're going to talk some college football later on in the show as we are now, I believe 17 days away from the start of the season on August 28th. Tick-tock time. Let's go. But it is 7:05 in the morning. You have less than 55 minutes until you got to get your behind into the office, sat down in that chair, logged in. You're going to respond to those emails that you ignored all weekend long because there was football on television, and screw your job, football's on. You're going to get those responded to. And then you're going to take that first well-earned break. You're going to walk down the hallway. You're going to chat it up with Samantha, who works over in whatever department. Who even cares? Who knows where Samantha works? Does Samantha even work there? It doesn't matter. She talks sports. And when you talk sports, you got to know what's going on. So you don't embarrass yourself in front of Samantha. And if you need to know what's going on in the world of sports, worry not, my dear friends. That's why we do this.
Are you ready for the playbook of the peculiar, the almanac of the absurd, and the encyclopedia of the extraordinary? Well, you better be, because we're diving headfirst into the 3 top stories that will have your coworkers saying,
"Oh no, don't start."
Where they take their first bathroom break.
No.
Here we go. Welcome to the water cooler cheat sheet on the Fan Upstate.
Tis indeed the water cooler cheat sheet, the top 3 sports stories that you need to know before you get to the office and start talking sports with your friends, your family, your coworkers, your dog, whoever it is you spend your workday with. When you do, this is what you'll be talking about. Let's dive in. It's item number 1. I don't know if you know this. If you don't, I'm happy to inform, enlighten, and educate. A'ja Wilson's really good at basketball. Like, really good at basketball. 13 of 25 from the floor. 32 points in a 94-86 victory over the Connecticut Sun yesterday. She also had 20 boards. If you're keeping track at home, that is a 30-20 double-double. If you are keeping track at home, that means that A'ja Wilson is the first WNBA player in history to record a 30-20 double-double. She is the first and only at this point. 32 points, 13 of 25 from the floor, 20 boards. Also her 14th double-double of the season. Her 6th career game with at least 30-15. She ties Tina Charles for the most in WNBA history, according to ESPN. Wilson also registered her 30th 30-point game. Asked about the performance afterwards, she said, quote, "It's huge. I didn't even know as many greats as we have in this league. It's kind of a shocker that it's just now happening. It's a blessing. I love what I do. I love what I do. I love it so much. So anytime that I can come out and just play basketball the way that I love it and the team and we're all getting involved, I'm happy with that," end quote. Wilson also, so far this season, became the fastest and second youngest player to score 5,000 career points. She now ranks first for 30-point games since entering the league back in 2018. She just turned 29 last Friday. And says, quote, "I'm sure there's going to be a lot following up," end quote. She was not talking about games. She was talking about WNBA players in the future who will be running down her record for 30-20s, 30-15s, 30-point games, and points overall. I think at this point, I'm not going to say we've got to hand her the MVP. I'm saying she's my front runner at this point. Speaking of milestones, as item number 1 is about milestones, Justin Verlander is getting his ass kicked this season. He is 1-9 at this point. His only win against the Atlanta Braves, because of course it was not much to celebrate this season for Justin Verlander, but he did give the Giants something to talk about in an 8-0 loss to the Washington Nationals yesterday. He struck out the opening side. 3 up, 3 down, all on Ks. The first of those put Justin Verlander over the 3,500 strikeout mark. He is just the 10th pitcher in the history of Major League Baseball to get to 3,500. He is 11 strikeouts shy of 9th overall most Ks in MLB history. Now, in fairness, in the last 3 games out for Verlander, a .6 ERA and 14 Ks across 15 innings. He did finish with 6 strikeouts against the Nationals, but he also gave up 11 hits and 5 runs before he got the hook in that game. Not much to talk about this year with Justin Verlander, but he does reach the 3,500 K mark. Let's get to item number 2. Speaking of not much to talk about, the Atlanta Braves have not given Braves fans much to talk about, but this weekend was interesting because unfortunately they waited until they were 20 games below 500 to do it. The Braves offense looked like what we expected it was going to look like this season. 5 games against the Marlins, Atlanta won 4 of them, and in all 4 wins, they scored 7 runs or more. They opened up with an 8-6 win on Friday. They dropped game 2, 5-1. On Thursday. They dropped game 2 on Friday, 5-1. Then a doubleheader on Saturday, 7-1, 8-6. And the cap yesterday, a 7-1 win over the Miami Marlins. Joey Wentz got the call to be the starter, 5.1 innings, gave up 4 hits, 1 earned run, K'd a couple before giving way. But again, the Braves offense on full display. Atlanta racked up 9 hits. That included doubles from Jurickson Profar, Ozzie Albies, and Michael Harris II. It included big dongs. Marcelo Zuna got his 19th of the season. Matt Olson got his 19th of the season. Michael Harris II got his 12th of the season. The Braves did go 1 for 5 with runners in scoring position, but fortunately, with the big dongs, it was enough to get it done offensively for the Bravos. So, too little, too late. The Braves improved to 51-67 by taking 4 of the 5 against Miami. They are also now back to 500 at home at Truist Park, a 30-30 record when they defend this house. Yeah, clack. But again, no room for Atlanta in the postseason at this point. It is just how do we grow, how do we develop? And yesterday, the Braves bats looked like they had found a little something. Let's get to item number 3. A couple of winners to talk about over the weekend. We start with the FedEx St. Jude Championship. Justin Rose made up a 3-shot deficit over the last 5 holes against Tommy Fleetwood, who at this point I am convinced Tommy Fleetwood must have built his house on top of an ancient graveyard or something, because I am now convinced Tommy Fleetwood is cursed. This is like the 800th career event where Tommy Fleetwood had a lead with just holes to play and did not win. Justin Rose birdied 4 straight, narrowly missed a 13-foot birdie putt on the 18th at TPC Southland. Rose would make 6 birdies over the last 8 holes he played. The last one, a 10-foot putt on 18 on the 3rd playoff hole. He needed 3 playoff holes to get by U.S. Open champion J.J. Spaun. Rose described the golf as, quote, an amazing last 90 minutes. I played unbelievable golf down the stretch. When I bring my best, I know I'm good enough to play and to compete and now to win against the best players in the world. It was a very gratifying day for me. Spaun did not have a bad go of it. Made a 20-foot birdie putt on 17 to pull into a share of the lead, closed with a 65. Also made a 30-foot birdie putt on the 2nd extra hole with Rose in what was a tight playoff. Spaun said, quote, I hung in there the best I could, and he beat me to the hole first. It just wasn't meant to be. J.J. Spaun locked up a spot in his first Ryder Cup. And, of course, Tommy Fleetwood, as we mentioned moments ago, looked to be his time to add a PGA Tour title to his litany of wins on multiple tours around the world. Knocked down a 35-foot birdie on the 12th, the first of 3 in a 4-hole stretch that gave him a 2-shot lead. But on 16, 17, and 18, it all fell apart. Fleetwood would end up shooting a 69, one shot out of the playoff, along with Scotty Scheffler, who grazed the edge of so many putts on the back nine, ended up with a 67 that could have been a 63 or 64 if he hadn't had a couple of lip outs. But there we have it. Over in the NASCAR world, another road race victory for Shane Van Gisbergen. It is his 4th win so far this year, his 5th career win. Van Gisbergen did not start from the pole this time. He was pole in Mexico City, Chicago, and Sonoma, but he got edged by Ryan Blaney. And so the question became, did the luck run out? Turns out, no, not at all. Bided his time, took his first lead on the 25th of the 90-lap race, then settled into a rhythm on the 2.45-mile road course. The 36-year-old rookie had a very clean race, only 3 yellow flags displayed throughout the entire time. Over the final 17 laps, cruised to a big lead. In fact, the next closest competitor, Christopher Bell, was over 11 seconds out. 5 victories in 38 career starts on the Premier Series for NASCAR. Van Gisbergen trails only Elliott and Larson amongst active drivers on street or road courses. Elliott has 7, Larson has 6. He is also the fastest to 5 wins in Cup since the legendary Dan Gurney, who won his 5th race in just his 13th start. But that was all the way back in 1968. Trackhouse signed Van Gisbergen to a multi-year contract extension this week, and he rewarded them with a win. He is now tied with Denny Hamlin for the series lead in victories. He also holds the number 2 seed in the playoffs with 2 races remaining in the regular season. The first round, however, this is where it is going to be interesting because the first round is 3 oval tracks. Van Gisbergen, who raced exclusively on road and street courses while winning 3 championships in the Australian-based Supercar League, has an average finish of 27th in oval courses. So the work cut out for the young man with 4 wins, but all of them in road courses. All right, let's take a break. When we come back here in just a minute, NFL preseason week number 1 in the books. Said it earlier in the show. We'll stick with it here. Preseason week 1 is not about evaluating teams. It is not about evaluating offenses or defenses. Week 1 is about evaluating new guys. It is about evaluating guys that you expect to have a franchise-changing impact on the team. So, what NFL youngsters stood out this weekend for the Carolina Panthers, for the Atlanta Falcons, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, New Orleans Saints, and others? We take a look at some of the standout youngsters when we come back. I am Rob Brown, the great with Lonzo on the ones and twos. The Rob Brown Show rolls on. It is the Fan Upstate. Yes, William. Very ready for a short week. It has been weeks since we've had a short week. So we done bent ready. Stay right there, guys. We'll be right back. The Rob Brown Show back on your radio. It's the Fan Upstate. Rob Brown, the Great One Lonzo, and you. We are going to talk some college football later on in the show as we are now just days away from the start of the season. But we are talking quite a bit of NFL football after preseason week number 1 goes in the books. The opening week specifically, but really preseason at large, is not necessarily indicative of what your team is going to look like when the regular season rolls around, as we have talked about many times over the course of the lead up to the preseason and will multiple times through it. The preseason is predominantly about finding two things. Number one, which of your youngsters are going to be impact havers for your team? And number two, finding depth, finding guys that you can trust if you need to call upon them due to injury or changes in strategic, there's the word, strategic pickups throughout the course of the year. It is about evaluating who is going to help your team that is new to it. So with that being said, let's take a look at some of the youngsters across the teams that we cover. We'll start with, of course, the Carolina Panthers. I will go with, initially, who stood out more than Tetairoa McMillan. This is a dude that, when drafted, the question mark was, what is he going to add to the offense? And I think you saw flashes of it. You saw the 30-yard over-the-shoulder catch. That's kind of a Bryce Young special. I'm going to throw it so high that it's going to rain afterwards, but I'm going to make that throw if you have a defender in your hip pocket. That is the type of throw that is tough to catch, but if you show us that you can catch it, it goes into the weapons pile for Bryce Young. A lot of DBs, if they get in the back pocket, if you throw that thing at shoulder trail height and a receiver locks eyes on it, and a good DB is capable of looking at a receiver's eyes, timing it out, and getting those hands up in the air. You got to get it over those hands, but you got to drop it down in a way the receiver can catch it. That's where that high-fly sky ball comes from. McMillan showing that catch is in the bag makes that route and that style of pass, it becomes a weapon. It's no longer a spray and pray. Like, I'm just going to throw it up there, and I hope if McMillan can get to it, it opens up a lot of opportunity for you in that go routes are now back on the menu, boys. I now know if I send McMillan down the sideline on a go route, and he is just able to get a step on a defensive back that's in the back pocket, I know I've got a chance to make something very special happen. Number two, with McMillan, I think you saw on what coulda, shoulda, woulda been a touchdown. But the pass that Tet McMillan dropped when BY hit him on the double move to the in cut, if that pass is caught, easy touchdown. And that's a transition style catch for a guy taking passes from BY. A college quarterback, with the exception of the best of the best, that ball is coming out as McMillan is making the in cut, which means he's got another step or two before the ball gets there. It also means that so do the defensive backs. BY threw a very high-level football with that pass. If you watch it, Bryce is making the throwing motion while McMillan is still faking the out cut, which means the ball is released and well on its way already. When he plants the outside, cuts it back to the inside, gets that cornerback or safety, whoever's the man up, with hips turned to the outside. That cut to the inside is usually followed by the receiver taking one or two steps, then the ball arriving. That ball was already at the goal line when McMillan took the instep. That means it's cut in, turn the head, bang, there's the football. Those are the types of throws that are made at the NFL level. Really, and only by the best, but made at the NFL level. Those are the types of footballs that if McMillan can get better about coming out of the cut and turning with the knowledge the ball is going to be there. It is not turn, look at quarterback. It is turn and look at football, which is close, and then making the hands. I'm not mad about that drop. That's a drop that is going to not be a drop with time. But there's another wide receiver to me that had just as big of an impact. In fact, I got a little frustrated because I saw David Newton for ESPN. I saw his write-up of Jimmy Horn Jr. Because Jimmy Horn Jr., Rashad Beard pointed him out a little bit on Friday. Jimmy Horn Jr. may actually turn out to be a bit of a crown jewel in this draft class for the Carolina Panthers. Picked him up out of Colorado in the 6th round. And there are some signs that this kid might be a little bit of a playmaker. Targeted 5 times, caught 4 of them. Newton wrote up as if that was a disappointment because he only caught 4 balls for 15 yards. My response is, Jimmy Horn Jr. is not your big play wide receiver. He's not the guy that I have out there because I expect him to go catch me some home run footballs. Jimmy Horn's out there to do exactly what Jimmy Horn did in that spot, which is, I need you to be my safety valve. I need you to be my outlet. I need you to be my guy that if they're playing a tight defense, you're the guy I trust to understand where are the stakes, get to them, sit down in a gap, and then be ready to make a play and hopefully be a yak daddy. I thought Jimmy Horn Jr. was very impressive in this game. Not that he had any huge plays. And again, I think sometimes we get caught up in big play equal big yardage. Big play equal touchdown. And that's not, for a guy like a Jimmy Horn Jr., that's not necessarily true. Sometimes the big play is, can you get me the first down? Sometimes the big play is, can you provide an outlet to avoid a sack? Sometimes the big play is, can you demand by being a presence that DBs play honest and don't shade over towards Teteroa McMillan? Jimmy Horn's the kind of guy that you take advantage of if you have a safety corner lined up on Teteroa McMillan and you start to recognize that the safety is shading over on T-Mac, who's one-on-one via DB, via cornerback on the outside. Jimmy Horn Jr. is the type of guy you run on a curl route to wherever the safety's vacating to go play a double team on McMillan, and you start to throw him the football to point out to the safety, hey, man, if you start playing dishonest football, we're going to eat you alive, and we don't care if it's 5 yards at a time. We don't care if it's completely 3, 4, 5 dink and duck up and down the field. This is 100% about can you force honest defensive formations. And I thought Jimmy Horn Jr. was spectacular about this. That's what I need out of this guy. I don't need big plays. That's what I got McMillan for. I don't need you to be a 1v1 jump ball stud. That's what I got, hopefully, and fingers crossed, Xavier Legette for. I don't need you to be a spectacular slot receiver. That's what I got Adam Thielen for. I need you to be the guy that demands that defenses stay honest and do not overplay our stars. That's it. And I thought Jimmy did that. Nick Scarton, Princely, Oman Mielen, fine. They were fine. They weren't good. They weren't bad. I think they combined for 1 sack. Again, point out that it was 1 sack against Shedeur Sanders. And while you can have question marks about Shedeur Sanders, the one thing you cannot question about Shedeur Sanders is his athleticism. Not going to be a guy that's going to take a lot of sacks. A guy you can force to throw it away a lot. A guy you can force into making some questionable throws. A guy that you can make bad decisions. But not a guy I think is going to be sacked a lot. So I'm not super concerned about the lack of sacks out of my brand new edge rushers. What I am concerned about is the couple of times that Shedeur was able to break contain. That's what I get concerned about. Your edge rushers, the assumption is the job is to get sacks. It's not. Those are a benefit to the job, but the job is to not get sacks, especially when you are playing a quarterback who is as mobile and agile and hostile as a Shedeur Sanders. I'm looking for contain. Can my defensive ends, can my edge rushers set the edge? Do not let number 2 get across your face and get wide of you. If he does, that's where we get dangerous. That's where we find ourselves in a problem. There were a couple of times that Shedeur Sanders was able to get to the edge, get to the outside. If he can get to the outside as a rookie, as a guy playing in his first NFL game, what does Baker Mayfield do if he gets to the outside? What does Spencer Rattler do if he gets to the outside? What does Michael Penix Jr. do if he gets to the outside? And if you end up winning this division, what happens if some of the even more agile and successful quarterbacks get to the outside? It creates a problem for you. It creates an issue for you. So I'm not unhappy with the guys on the edge, with the young guys, the edge rushers, which was the other emphasis of the 2025 Panthers draft. I am saying there's a lot of work to be done. There's a lot of room for improvement. I was not upset or unhappy with any of the young guys. I thought Jimmy Horn Jr. stood out. I think McMillan showed you exactly why he got drafted. I think the edge rushers, the 2 primary guys that I was concerned about, showed you that there's going to be a learning curve to this. And again, when you get Derek Brown back, that's going to be a big help because there were a lot of spots where guards were able to help out with the edge rushers because they weren't having to worry about the double team of one of the best nose tackles in the game. You get Derek Brown back into that equation. Now all of a sudden guys have to be concerned about, all right, we got to get an extra body on that guy. We got to stay tight to the center, chip in, push Derek Brown back to the middle. Now there's probably one less guy on our edge rushers more often. I'm not freaking out about it yet. Texter said, Rob, I think we have to pump the brakes a little on the Panthers defense. The play calling was vanilla Friday night. I think they'll be a top 15 defense with the return of Derek Brown and the signings they made. I'm cautious about it. I'm not even going to say cautiously optimistic, Texter, just cautious about what I saw. I'm not saying they're going to be good. I'm just not ready to say they're going to be back to bottom of the league bad. We'll talk some more NFL preseason as the day rolls on. Hour 3, going to be a lot of college football. The Rob Brown Show rolls on. This is the Fan Upstate. Actually, did not get to see a lot of Cam Ward, but he looks like he was throwing the ball well, too. 5 of 8, 67 and a tutty. All right, guys, stay right there. We will be right back. The Rob Brown Show back on your radio. It's the Fan Upstate taking your overreactions or lack thereof from week one of the NFL preseason. We had a brief discussion back in the first hour about Xavier Legette. A texter has reached out on the Hub City Spartanburgers text line, 844-326-3663. Shoot us your text. We will read and address them on the air. Texter said, quote, just a comment on Xavier Legette. Hate to see what happened after you hear all off season that he is taking the next steps. Winners/successful players don't do that, especially in a preseason game. Listen, I agree with the take. I agree with the text. It is disappointing that a guy that we all have, I think, at least I do, very high hopes for. I think Xavier Legette has all of the necessary tools to be exactly the receiver that the Panthers need him to be. And as we have talked about, this dude has looked good in the preseason. He's been a obviously fantastic content generating machine just by being himself, which is fantastic. But I'm talking about on the football field. I have seen the videos of XL taking Paul Skeen's heaters off the jugs machine and having few to no problems grabbing him. I've seen this dude look like he's in the best shape of his life. Dude looks thick with multiple C's on the end. Everything's looked good. And so we were waiting for preseason game number one for Xavier Legette to prove that all of the work that he is alleged to have done in the preseason, or excuse me, in the offseason to get ready for the preseason was ultimately going to pay off. I'm not saying it hasn't. I'm saying Xavier Legette cost himself the chance to prove that. I am not don't throw hands guy. I am don't throw hands at a dude's head when he's wearing a helmet guy. I don't think that needs to be said. But
he shouldn't have did it. And, punching a helmet still it's stupid no matter what year it is. If it was 1974 or 2025, punching a helmet is just dumb. But can you put all that aside and judge his form as a former boxing guy?
I mean, it wasn't good.
Really? I thought it looked pretty good.
It wasn't good. And on top of that, you can have all the form in the world when it comes to boxing. And this is one of the reasons that despite having some training from the greatest pound-for-pound boxer in the history of the game, I'm also not inclined to utilize it because being able to throw a good jab cross combo is fantastic. But if you're in a scrap and a dude grabs you by the shirt and pulls you in, that kind of goes out the window because you can't do that in boxing. So, as far as a football fight goes, I mean, not overwhelmingly impressed. And I guess that's going to be the other part of it is, and I'm only like half joking when I say this, if you're going to get into a fight in the preseason, at least win it, right? I don't think there was really a winner in that.
Well, he didn't look good when his helmet got pulled, when he tried to go for the double leg, and it was ugly all the way around.
Yeah.
It really was. And I still don't know what the guy said or did to get him to do that.
And that is why
what is his trigger?
That is why I don't judge scraps. And now I will judge timing of said scrap. I will judge execution of said scrap, but I don't judge what led to it happening. There is I think, a fantastic scene from Ted Lasso, which if you haven't gotten around to watching it, do it because it's spectacular. There is a scene from Ted Lasso where one of the players on the team, who is kind of known for being like a good dude, but kind of a hard ass, Isaac McAdoo. He is the captain of AFC Richmond, the fictional team around which this show is based. And as they are walking off the pitch after the first half, a guy in the crowd, a fan in the crowd, yells a slur at one of his teammates / friends. And McAdoo ends up in the stands going toe-to-toe with this guy. He gets obviously sent off with a red card, suspended, whatever. And they go to Roy Kent, who is kind of the ex-player turned coach, hard-assed enforcer, whatever. And they go, do you approve what he did? And the guy goes, no, I'm not going to approve, but I'm also not going to judge him as a person based on it because. And he goes to basically say, we sometimes forget that these players are players. And we sometimes forget that these people are people. I don't know what got said to XL. I don't know what happened. I don't know if it was just the guy was holding him. And let's be real, if you're a guy like Xavier Legette, who is got this preseason effectively to prove that he is the dude that he was drafted to be. If this dude, the defensive back on the other side, is preventing him from doing that by playing dirty football, I can see how that get in his head. I can see that he said something about his mama or his dog, or let's be real, he probably insulted Dollar Bill. But whatever he said or did, I'm not going to judge that until I know the story. Here is what I will judge. Regardless of the reason, good reason or bad reason, I need you out there. Because it's not just about you proving it to me that you are that guy. It is also about you proving to Bryce Young that you can be trusted as a wide receiver, a primary wide receiver. It is about you proving to Dave Canales that you can be trusted as a primary wide receiver. It is about you proving to your offense that they can trust you in the heat of the moment not to lose your cool. Because all you proved to them and to us as fans, all that you proved is that defenses now know, and if they can figure out what got said, they can now get in your head as well unless you can cool it. All they know is you're a hothead, right? That's not a good trait to have. Look at Tyreek Hill. We know what Tyreek Hill is capable of in his best form, right? We know what this guy can do. We also know that when he overreacted to the end of the Dolphins season last year, and he was tweeting, I've had a good time, Miami, I'm out, and then it turns out that he's not out and he's still a Miami. Well, guess what's happened with Tyreek Hill? Tyreek is now having to earn back the trust of his team, and it ain't going great. There was a clip that got posted on the way to the preseason game for the Dolphins, or maybe it had been from a practice beforehand. Don't know, don't matter. Tyreek's on the bus. He is in a seat in front of his kicker. He puts him, I guess it was, I don't know if it was on Instagram Live or if Tyreek posted it because he thought it was funny or what. But Tyreek's in front of his kicker, and he does that thing where he puts it on video, but he then raises it up, and the kicker thinks he's about to take a picture, but he's filming. And after a second or two where the guy's like, take the picture, Tyreek looks at him and goes, you better not miss a kick this year. And you can see this look of almost like disgust. Disgust. The gross one. You can see this look of gross on the kicker's face.
You said it right the first time, dude.
Yeah, no, but then my brain confused itself. He had this look of disgust on his face. And Tyreek goes, you better not miss a kick this year. And the kicker, in what I can only describe as like a genuine moment, says, yeah, you better not drop a ball this year then. And then just turns away. And maybe I'm reading into that moment because of all of the drama around Tyreek Hill. But that kind of looked like a behind-the-curtains moment of what Tyreek has bred on this football team, right? They don't trust this guy. This guy was willing to, at the end of last season, throw them under the bus and make it sound like it was the Dolphins' fault that Tyreek was a disgruntled wide receiver. And here's this moment. That coulda, shoulda, woulda been like a fun little moment on IG Live with one of his boys saying, oh, you better not miss a kick. And instead, this kicker is like, yeah, you better not drop a ball, jackass. He didn't say jackass, but I felt it. Like I felt it coming. That's kind of what I'm talking about. The question mark now this year is...
So it's more disrespectful because it comes from the kicker.
No, but like it's disrespectful in that if you're going to call out somebody on the team, why go after that guy when you yourself were the biggest problem this offseason? Because remember, it wasn't just walking away from the Dolphins at the end of the year. It was also the next domestic violence arrest that Tyreek went through, right? Like, he's had plenty of problems off season. He became the big distraction. And now he's up in here dropping bombs on the kicker. Why? You're the guy that's been the problem this offseason. So to circle back around to Xavier Legette, the issue I bump into now is not whether or not we as fans trust Xavier Legette to be the guy that we're going to get the most out of for the Carolina Panthers. Now I got to think, if I'm Bryce Young, can I trust this guy? If I'm Dave Canales, can I trust this guy? Because here's what I do know. What I do know is if it's that easy to get into Xavier Legette's head that a DB did it within the first handful of minutes of preseason game one, can I trust him when games are on the line? Do I even give him a roster spot if it turns out that all you got to do is say, hey, XL, dollar bill ain't that fast, and now he wants to throw hands?
So this makes me think of wrestling to a degree, and I hope this isn't the case, where a guy who does killer promos and he kills it on the mic, but he gets in the ring and he's like mediocre. I hope this isn't what we get. I hope we get improvement from Legette, but we didn't get a chance to see it because of what he did in the game.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly the point. This is a cat who has everything on the line. I mean, really, everything on the line. Because what good is a wide receiver 2 who can't catch the football? What good is a wide receiver 2 that the quarterback doesn't trust? None. Not at nilch, none. Especially when you have this deep of a wide receiver room. The Panthers have put together a stunning wide receiver room. McMillan looks like he's the real deal. Thielen was that good at wide receiver 1. Imagine what he's going to be back in the slot. Jalen Coker looked in this preseason game number 1. Jalen Coker looked like he might be a dude. And then you start to add in the Hunter Renfros of the world. Right now, today, and I genuinely want you to think about this. If I told you right now today that you could only keep one, Xavier Legette or Hunter Renfro, who are you keeping? Because I'm going to make a lot of arguments. It might be smart to keep Hunter Renfro at this point, right? That's kind of the point here. It's not that I got an issue with a guy throwing hands, because I've said a few times it is a philosophy I live by. I think there are some times and some places where we, as the United States, need to come up with a 5 to the face rule. That is to say, if you're acting a fool and a dude slaps you in the face to chill you the bleep out, if half the people who see it agree that you had it coming, the slapper is off the hook, right? I'm not talking about beat the hell out of a dude. I'm saying if you punch a guy in the face and half the people who witnessed it say, yeah, that guy deserved to be punched in the face, the guy who does the punching's off the hook. Like, I'm not saying it was right or wrong what he did. I don't know what got said, and I don't know if it was a lesson worth teaching. What I do know is I now have one fewer opportunity to figure out if Xavier Legette's the guy or not. I have one fewer opportunity to find out. Do we keep him and cut Hunter Renfro? Do we keep Renfro and put Dollar Bill and XL on the practice squad? Do we DFA him outright? Like, I don't know what to do with this guy, and now I have one less opportunity. Here's what I will say. Preseason game number 2 coming up this weekend. XL better have his gosh darn head screwed on right. XL better be out there doing his thing. Because another instance like that, and he could lose his job before he gets to prove what he did was an upgrade this offseason.
And even though it's preseason, now people have seen what he did, so the opposing team's going to come in and say, let's see what we can do to get him out of the game.
Yeah. I mean, you become a target. You become a target. If you genuinely have this hot-headedness, knowing that you are in a situation to prove you deserve the wide receiver 2 spot, and I can get you to freak out like that, if I'm a DB, I'm talking bleep about Dollar Bill every time we line up. Hey, dude, your horse is ugly. Dollar Bill got 3 legs shorter than the one. Like, whatever I can come up with, man, I'm getting after him.
Is that really a diss for it?
I don't know how to insult the horse.
I don't know either.
All right? I don't know what the insult. I don't know what the right insult to a horse is. I'm just saying I'd be spitballing until I got one that was right. Hey man, your horse got dumb teeth. I don't know how to insult a horse, but if I did, I'd bring it to XL. Here's something I can't insult: Lonzo's Sports Flash.
Yeah, now okay. The Atlanta Braves offense was clicking over the weekend as they took 4 of 5 against Miami and scored at least 7 in all 4 wins. The series was wrapped with a 7-1 victory yesterday with 9 hits, including homers from Ozuna, Olsen, and Harris II, and doubles from Profar, Albies, and Harris II. Former South Carolina Gamecock Asia Wilson keeps making WNBA history. In a 94-86 win over the Sun, Wilson finished with 32 points and 20 rebounds, becoming the first WNBA player to record a 30-20 double-double. It's the 14th double-double of the season and the 6th of her career, with a 30-15 over betting starting line. Spencer Rattler got the start for the Saints against the Chargers yesterday. Rattler went 7 for 11. For 53 yards and carried 3 times for 22 yards, leading all rushers for New Orleans. Rookie Tyler Shuck completed 15 of 22 passes for 165 yards, a touchdown, and a pick.
We've got John Blau of the Post and Courier coming up here in about 40 minutes. We'll talk some Clemson football with him as we inch ever closer to week number 1 of the college football season of 2025. Welcome back. It is the Rob Brown Show here on the Fan Upstate. Rob Brown, the great one, Lonzo, and you talking a little college football, talking a little NFL football, probably going to get some baseball in here later because for the first time in a long time, the Braves were fun this weekend. I didn't intend to watch any baseball, but had a couple of extra TVs around the crib, threw them up on the little one, and then I kept looking up and seeing that the Braves were putting together 9, 10, 11 hit games. We're scoring 5, 6, 7 runs. It was like, oh man, I gotta pay attention to this. And I did. Good, taking 4 or 5 against Miami, put them back under 500. That felt nice. You know, it's schadenfreude at this point. My team stinks, so I'm going to make sure that I make sure everybody else's team stinks too. Texter on the Hub City Spartanburger text line, 844-326-3663 says, any NASCAR talk yet? We're going to get there. Texter Shane Van Gisbergen gets his 4th win on the season. Of course, he has wanted all 4 road/street tracks, both street tracks so far this year. Now, not locked into, but a pretty good bet to be the number 2 seed going into the NASCAR playoffs. The problem you have with this cat is, not going to say he's a ringer, but his average position of finish on oval tracks is 27th, and the first 3 tracks on the playoff circuit, starting at Darlington in a couple of weeks, are all ovals. So this is going to be real interesting. Can a guy who has made all the money running street and road courses, can he be the guy? Can he be the guy in the playoffs that figures it out? We're going to talk about that a little bit later on. Texter, he says, I've got a NASCAR and SVG take I could possibly call in to share. We're going to talk about that coming up in a little while from now, Texter, so hang on to that or send it on the text line, and we'll get to it. Texter said, oh, no, we have to listen to Rob say Courier over and over again. How do you – Courier.
There it is.
Post and Courier.
There we go.
The word is pronounced Courier.
No, it's not.
It is. There's a U in it.
It's Courier.
There's a U in it.
Yeah, it's Courier. Just think of Steph when you say the word.
John Blau from that newspaper is going to join us coming up in about 37 minutes.
Why don't you ask John how he says the name of the paper?
Because I don't want to.
Okay.
Because I don't want to. That's why. Because I don't want to. That's why. All right. We have talked at length about what this Clemson football team is going to look like this year. And I've already made it a point a couple of weeks ago to kind of give my thoughts on some of the individual games. But I think now, even though it is a short week for the great one and I, as we are off on Thursday and Friday, I think these next 3 days are as good a time as any to get into a tradition unlike any other. No, it is not Masters Week. It's time for us to ask you, what are your realistic ceiling and floor expectations for your football team? And South Carolina fans, we're going to do the same for you. Now, we'll start today by really kind of deep diving Clemson because we do have John Blau of the Post and Courier coming up later on in this hour.
It's in your head now.
No, I mean, it's always going to be Courier, just like it's tournament, not tournament. It's a tour. Your favorite band doesn't go on tour. All right? They get out there, they play a bunch of shows. It's called a tour, not a tour.
As someone who spent the first half of my life in the North, it's still tournament, okay?
Okay.
It's still Courier.
That's fine. I cannot wait. I cannot wait until your favorite band comes here to play on Greenville on their latest tour. It's going to be awesome.
Listen, I'm guessing this is golf course talk. I mean, because I don't know the accent, so maybe it's haughty pronunciation.
When a band plays multiple shows in multiple cities, what is it called?
It's not working.
What's it called? Just say the word.
I didn't make fun of it. The texter did. I was just agreeing with them.
I can't wait till Creed goes on tour again.
We are all individuals. Some of us say things differently than others. It doesn't mean that it's weird. It does mean it's weird, but you just got to get used to it. There are some words that you're going to say differently, and you're the only one I know who says the words that way. But, I have a small circle. So,
So, ladies and gentlemen, of the Clemson Tiger perspective, ladies and gentlemen of the South Carolina Gamecock perspective, let us begin our annual tradition. And our annual tradition is answering the question, what do you expect as a realistic ceiling and a realistic floor for your 2025 college football program of choice? Clemson, I feel like the ceiling isn't one that we have to spend a ton of time on. It feels to me as if the ceiling for Clemson is 12-0 regular season, win the ACC title, go into the playoffs at 13-0. And I think that's realistic. I have said it a few times. You are bookended by the two biggest games. You've got LSU out of the gate. You've got South Carolina at the finish line.
All right. I know I'm interrupting football for something, but I think this is a big deal. The UFC is now moving to Paramount and CBS, according to Dana White. This historic deal with Paramount and CBS is incredible for UFC fans and our athletes.
I will have to evaluate. I got to think about that a little bit. So they're leaving ESPN?
They're leaving ESPN.
That's really interesting. With ESPN's direct-to-consumer streaming, the reason why, and we talked a little bit about this last week when it was announced that ESPN was giving a 10% equity share to ESPN in order to, taking a 10% equity share from ESPN in return for all the NFL's media outlets effectively. The assumption there for me was that this was a move to get more sports. This was a move to have more sports.
I should have read further on. For the first time ever, fans in the U.S. will have access to all UFC content without a pay-per-view model, making it more affordable and accessible to view the greatest fights on a massive platform. That makes it sound like it's the PLE format, but I don't know.
I don't know. I got to see what the model is. An assumption off the top of my head with exactly and precisely zero reason to make this assumption would be if you have Paramount Plus, you're going to pay for an add-on with UFC, but that add-on just gives you everything, including the big cards. But maybe not. I don't know. Spike Texas Show said, but is UFC going on tour? Which is a great text, Spike. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. All right.
I'm sorry. You can get back to Clemson now. I mean, it wouldn't have mattered what it was breaking news.
No, I think
it's breaking news.
No,
that's a big deal. And also, it's kind of weird. ESPN goes, and so did ESPN get the other things because they knew they were going to lose UFC.
You ready for my theory that it's going to tiptoe up to the line of politics? I have a theory. I'm willing to share it. Why not? I got a 3-day week. Why not get some heat right out of the gate? Here's my theory. Paramount, who owns CBS, have been involved in a conversation that has been somewhat involved in the world of politics. Obviously, they canceled Stephen Colbert, although he has, like 9.5 more months before the final show.
Canceled because of ratings. Everything else was overblown, but he got canceled because of ratings.
I mean, that is the argument for those who want you to believe that. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm saying that there's that. The other argument is Stephen Colbert got canceled because Stephen Colbert is very critical of the current administration and weren't a big fan, which is why, allegedly, Paramount is also now putting into CBS a ombudsman in the name of fair and balanced. And there's a lot of pushback against this because Paramount also just went through a big merger that had to be signed off on by the FCC and to be approved to happen. And there are those that subscribe to the theory that this was all done to appease the administration who oversees the FCC, to have the FCC approve a multi-billion-dollar merger, blah, blah, blah. It's a whole thing. It's a whole thing. But regardless of what is right and what is wrong, I'm coming back to that. Regardless of what is right and what is wrong in this case, a lot of people are canceling their subscription to Paramount right now. That is empirical. They have seen a decrease in subscriptions and an increase in cancellations.
So it had
empirical.
nothing to do with the fact that they don't really have anything on Paramount.
They do have a lot on Paramount.
Like what?
The new South Park, if nothing else.
Okay, all right. To me, it had nothing that made me want to get a subscription.
Correct, Lonzo,
to that.
but you are you.
Right.
You are not everybody.
But now,
right?
But now with the UFC on there, I might do that.
Right. So that's where I'm going, which is that there is a.
By the way, my choices have nothing to do with politics. It just has to do with there was nothing on Paramount.
But this isn't about you.
In the context of what you were talking about, it makes it sound like because I may be on one side that I'm fitting into what you're talking about, and I'm moving over there strictly because of the politics.
No, you are moving over for the UFC. But the point that I'm making is that for a lot of people that subscribe to the belief that the moves made by CBS and by Paramount, their owner company, their parent company, have been politically driven, they are walking away.
It's the first time I've ever heard that. So
okay, well,
when you say a lot of people, you're the only one I've ever heard say that. So, but again, that doesn't mean other people aren't.
So the people that have a demographic, a left-leaning demographic that believes the moves being made by CBS / their parent company Paramount are tantamount to appeasing an administration that they needed to sign off on an FCC-approved merger for Paramount. If they are losing subscriptions due to that, then the opposite side of the coin is the UFC is more viewed. And this isn't a conspiracy. This is just a theory. The opposite side is the UFC demographically is larger within a right-leaning fan base. This is why Donald Trump shows up at UFC events with great regularity. And
or
so
maybe he likes the fights.
Maybe so.
I mean, it could be.
Maybe so. But the belief is Donald Trump showing up on the UFC cards quite a bit because the demographics are in his favor. That's just the political truth, right? So the belief then might be Paramount may be willing to overpay UFC to bring them over because if they are losing subscribers from the left side of the country, they can pick those up from the right side of the country who are much more inclined to be UFC fans. It is still a wildly popular and profitable enterprise UFC is for sure, but there is also the theory, the background theory of they've lost a lot of subscribers on the right. Or on the left, how can we make that up? Let's go get a sport that is very popular with viewers on the right, much more popular. Like football is spread across the demographics of politics. Everybody likes football. Baseball, spread across the demographic of politics. Everybody likes baseball. UFC has a heavily right-leaning demographic. That's just empirical. So if you pick up UFC, you may be willing to overpay to pick up what you lost out on from folks on the left who have unsubscribed from Paramount Plus. Again, it's just a theory. I don't have anything to back that up other than the demographic nature of what's happening. I can't prove that this is why they did it, but I would be interested to see what the numbers are that they are paying. If they, put it this way, if they paid as much to the UFC to gain their rights as ESPN paid to the NFL to gain their rights, then I would feel a lot more confident about that theory. If they gave them 20% of what ESPN gave the NFL to pick up their rights, then I'd make, that maybe this is just a sports move. I don't know. But to me, it is an interesting conversation and a place where that Venn diagram of sports and politics absolutely overlap just a little bit. All right.
Wow. I may not have broke the news if I knew we were going to get all that.
I find it interesting. Like, that's not, I don't know why that would be something we wouldn't want to talk about.
I'm more excited to hear about Clemson.
I don't know. I mean, different strokes, different folks. That's all of the factors that have gone into the moves made by ESPN to acquire the NFL Network, by NFL to acquire 10% equity stake, in ESPN. All of the teams jumping over. The decision-making process, we talked about this quite a bit last week. The statement from Rob Manfred a couple of weeks ago where he said even he feels like baseball's too spread out. And one of his next stack of goals is to centralize baseball a little more, get it to where you don't have to, you don't have games scattered across 97 different networks. All of that is wildly interesting to me.
By the way, according to CNBC, I wanted to point that out. I don't know why. Paramount buys UFC rights for $7.7 billion, 7-year deal.
God.
So that's like a little over $1 billion a year.
Yeah. I don't know, man.
The agreement is for 43 annual UFC live events, which will be exclusively streamed in the U.S. on Paramount Plus. The new Paramount deal will eliminate the pay-per-view model used by ESPN and its current deal with UFC, making all events available for no extra charge on Paramount Plus. Got to go get Paramount Plus now. So it is the PLE model. And I think with Netflix also going to sports and not charging extra for their sports too, I think it's the way to go.
I do too. But over, you said $7.7 billion over 7 years.
It doesn't start till 2026 though.
You're looking at effectively $1.1 billion a year for the UFC. And it doesn't go till 2026 because that's how long the contract signed between UFC and ESPN is. But I don't know, man. I think that there is some level of possibility, likelihood that there is at least the factor of politics and demographics involved in here. But at the same time, the UFC is a wildly popular sport. It's not the NFL. It's not college football. But I would argue that the UFC is closer to baseball than baseball would like.
Okay, here's another quote. The pay-per-view model is a thing of the past, according to Mark Shapiro, TKO Group's president and chief operating officer. What's on pay-per-view anymore? Boxing, movies, on DirecTV. It's an outdated, antiquated model, so it was paramount for us, forgive the pun, where it's one-stop shopping, especially for our younger fans in flyover states. When they find out, wait, it's just sign up for Paramount for $12.99 and I'm going to automatically get UFC. Yeah. I mean, that's why I have Peacock, because WWE went to that model. It didn't have to pay for pay-per-views anymore. And I think this is this the end of pay-per-views, period? I don't know, but that's got to put a dent in it.
I would say, honestly, I'll forecast the answer is yes. And I will forecast the answer is yes just based on the conversations we've had the last few weeks of when the ESPN NFL merger happened last week. One of the questions that got asked more than anything else, I think, was, is this going to demand that I pay my $30 and then pay more for NFL content and then potentially pay even more for games, especially at a point now where, again, the math's been done. If you want to watch every NFL game, you've got to have Netflix, you've got to have Amazon Prime, you've got to have Hulu, you've got to have YouTube TV or ESPN, you got to have the $30 a month for the ESPN, whatever it's going to be called. Like, you were talking about hundreds of dollars per week, per month, per year in order to watch every NFL game. And some people would equate that to having to pay extra for pay-per-view, right? Like I pay for ESPN Plus. Will I move over to the $30 model? I don't know. I got to see what it takes shape to look like in its final form. Maybe. I'll tell you a great way to get me out of it and drive me to definitely not pirating. I would never, the audacity.
Never.
But would be saying $30 a month and then $6 per college football game that you want to watch on top of that. No, I'm out, dude. I'll find somewhere else to watch it. So, I don't know. I do think it is interesting. I think there's a lot of factors at play, and I do think there are probably variables outside of just sports that are in play with this deal. $1.1 billion a year is a huge number.
And
huge number.
Also in the article, it said ESPN was only paying $500 million.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, are you telling me You think ESPN paying $500 million, jumping to $1.1 billion is just like a, hey, just sports? There's more to it.
No, there was a bidding war. Several people several places in negotiation for it. And I'm guessing it's one, well, we'll pay this. Well, they said they'll pay this. So
Maybe so, but
good on UFC
but
for what they're doing.
110%
By the way,
increase.
it doesn't matter, but I think it has nothing to do with politics.
And I disagree entirely. I think I'm not going to say largely politically driven, but it is somewhat politically driven. So let's take a break. We'll come back. We may come back to that later on in the show. But when we come back, now we ask the question, roof, ceiling. What are your realistic expectations for Clemson, for South Carolina? We'll give you our thoughts. John Blau with the Post and Courier coming up in about 20 minutes. That's all on the Rob Brown Show in the Fan Upstate. Oh, man.
7 minutes.
Be right back, guys. and floor, realistic expectations for your football team. We will ask this question all 3 of the next 3 days. Alonzo and I are out on Thursday and Friday, the final vacation for before football season kicks off, and likely final vacation until the regular season of college football comes to its conclusion. So we're out on Thursday and Friday, but we will ask the question today, tomorrow, and Wednesday. South Carolina fans, Clemson fans, what is your honest ceiling and floor expectation for your football teams? We will start with Clemson because we do have John Blau with the Post and Courier coming up in the next segment of the show. We'll talk to him and get his answer to these 2 questions, or I guess this one question divided into 2 parts. Realistic ceiling and floor expectations. Let's start with Clemson, and let's start with the ceiling. Undefeated national champions. That's the ceiling this year. That is I think, realistic possible outcome for this football team.
With that team? I don't know. Did you say with that team when you said 16? Dabo, I just don't want.
Yeah, with that team.
We don't want, we don't want.
For the record.
We don't want.
And we talked about the conversation around Dabo Swinney on Friday about getting upset about the article or the quote being out of context, whatever. I've said this before and I'll say it again. I got zero problem at all, none, not a 9. If Dabo was to say, yeah, I think we're going 16-0 and undefeated national champion. That's what I want the attitude to be.
He should absolutely say that. By the way, for me, the ceiling is the same. Undefeated national championship. The floor is they should win the ACC. They are the ACC. I've said it for years. I'm still going to say it. Even when they don't win the ACC, they still were the ACC that year.
The ACC this year, I think, is more dangerous than it has been in years gone by.
Dangerous for who?
Everyone in it.
Okay,
Clemson,
just
Florida
within
State,
the ACC.
Miami. No, not necessarily. I think it could be, depending on how many teams the ACC gets / sneaks into the playoffs. I think there are some better than anticipated football teams in this conference this year. I have mentioned them already. I think we are about to see, and I could be wrong, but we'll find out. I think we're about to see perhaps the best Georgia Tech football team that's ever existed. I think this Georgia Tech football team is as good as it's ever been and getting better in a brick key. Louisville, I think, has the potential to be a very dangerous football team this year. I think Louisville behind Miller Moss, if he is the dude. Remember, Miller Moss is a guy that Jeff Brom saw in a bowl game a couple of years ago, and he hung like 4 touchdowns and 300-something yards on Jeff Brom's offense. That's why Jeff Brom saw this guy in the portal and said, that's my dude, and went and got him. And I think Jeff Brom is unafraid to let Miller Moss go throw 70 times a game if the passing offense is clicking. Will the passing offense click? I don't know. We're going to find out. But they've got the weapons. It is going to be about, can that offensive line, in the face of defensive lines and linebackers like Clemson's, in the face of defensive lines and linebackers like Miami's, like Florida State's, etc., will they be able to give Miller Moss time to throw the football? If the answer is yes, Louisville is a very dangerous team. I don't think they're going to be dangerous. Lonzo does. What is North Carolina this year? They've got themselves a decent set of weapons. There's no Amarian Hampton. There's no Drake May. There's no Tez. There's no studs. But there's a lot of consistency. And on top of that, there's the hoodie. There's the hoodie's kid. There's a good coaching staff that Bill's put into play. And that does not include the number of former Bill Belichick NFLers that have pulled up to give, mentoring tutelage to some of these players. North Carolina's a wild card to me. Rhett Lashley and SMU, a team that challenged Clemson until the very last play of the ACC title game last year. A team that was in the playoffs. Yeah, they got the doors broke off of them, but SMU got in last year. I think a lot of people are sleeping on the Duke Blue Devils. I have a big question about Duke. Duke won 9 games last year. I think it is fair to ask the question. I posed this question over the weekend. I pose it again. Did Duke win 9 games last year because Manny Diaz got humbled at Miami and learned the lessons? Or did Duke win 9 games last year because new Texas A&M Aggies coach Mike Elko left the Blue Devils in a great spot before he took off? I don't know. What I do know is the Blue Devils have a multi-million-dollar NIL quarterback. What I do know is, athletically speaking, Duke's got more football players on this roster than they may have ever had in years gone by. I am not arguing Duke's going to the playoffs. I'm arguing they're a dangerous football team. Right now, here's a number that kind of floats out what this feels like to me this year. Florida State, 2-10 last year. 13-0 the year before that, left out of the playoffs, 2-10 last year. And throughout the course of the offseason, the question obviously has been, can Florida State have a bounce back year? Can Florida State get back, maybe not into ACC contention, but like back into bowl eligibility? Can they get to 8? With that conversation being the conversation around Florida State, I would have assumed that the Las Vegas over-under win total for Florida State would have been 6.5. Can they get a game above bowl eligibility? You know what the over-under number I've seen for Florida State is? 8.5. Vegas is looking at what's happened this offseason and gone, that's a 9-win football team. Either an 8 or a 9-win team. And so the number's 8.5 with I think a slight juice to the under. So they're a little bit more of a believer that they're 8-4 than 9-3. But the point is, they think there's a bounce back for Florida State. That could be dangerous. Like, I think this conference is a little bit more dangerous than it's been made out to be for Clemson. Still, 13-0 ACC champs is the roof expectation. What's the floor? The floor would include a loss to LSU. The floor would include a loss to South Carolina. The floor could include a loss to Georgia Tech and Atlanta. Years ago, that would have been like, I'd have been run off the radio for saying something like that. That Georgia Tech team took Georgia to 8 overtimes last year before they lost. You don't think that could happen to you? The floor could include a loss to SMU in the regular season. If that's the floor, there's 8-4. And we didn't talk about Duke, Florida State, Louisville, North Carolina. Like, the absolute worst that could happen, Clemson's 8-4 because they get sniped as everybody's Super Bowl and they're just not ready. Do I think that's likely to happen? No. I think much more likely would be like 11-1. Maybe 10-2 with LSU and South Carolina both getting you on the beginning and the end. I don't know. So here's what we'll do. When we come back, John Blau with the Post and Courier is going to join us. We'll ask him, realistic ceiling, 13-0, ultimately won the title. What's his floor? What's the worst that can happen? We'll find out from John next on The Rob Brown Show in the Fan Upstate. All right, guys, we're going to step away, get John lined up. Y'all stay right there. We'll take your answers. We'll hear what John has to say and more. Brown Show back on your radio. It is the Fan Upstate. Rob Brown, the great one, Lonzo, and now joining us on the radio program as he does every Monday at 8:40 a.m. to talk a little Clemson athletics. He covers the Clemson Tiger Athletic Department for the Post and Courier. John Blau joins us here on the show. John, my guy, welcome back, big fella. How we doing?
I'm good. How are you, Rob?
I'm exceptional. Thank you very much. As we are inside of 3 weeks away from college football, let's start with the 36,000-foot view as we normally do. John Blau, we've seen some practices. We've seen more eyes on the product as we inch ever closer. Just overall vibe on the football program for you. And I'm going to ask you here in a second, ceiling and floor, realistic expectation for both. As we kind of start to get a better feel for what the season's going to look like, where are we today on August 11th?
Yeah, I mean, the vibes are still pretty good for Clemson. I mean, for most programs across the country, they all think they're going to win a national championship before the first game is played. But we obviously got to talk to Dabo after the first scrimmage. He said, it was pretty even between the offense and the defense, exchanging blows. He was happy with the offense one moment and he was mad at them. Then same thing with the defense. And usually that means that both sides are just competitive. And obviously, with the offense, you have pretty high expectations because everybody they return and the experience they have there. But the defense obviously struggled a whole lot last year. And I think there's a feeling that Tom Allen's got the tackling in a better spot, the aggressiveness, the play and react rather than kind of thinking too much. So there's a lot of positivity there. And yeah, I mean, I think obviously everybody's wondering if they're going to live up to this hype once they play a team like LSU and Death Valley, but we'll find out in 2 or 3 weeks.
John Blau joining us here on the Rob Brown Show in the Fan Upstate. So, John, with that being said, with the comments we have heard from Dabo Swinney, with the eyeballs we've had on the product so far, I will ask you the same question that we are asking our listenership today, with the assumption that the ceiling is undefeated national champions, and that seems to be the pretty popular answer so far. What is your floor? What do you think is realistically the bottom that this Clemson football program could reach, and what would cause them to fall to it?
Yeah, I mean, I think the floor is probably somewhere like 9-3, like last year. If you trip up against LSU, maybe a team on the road like Georgia Tech or Louisville. Obviously, South Carolina's shown they're in a better place as a program. So that's not a guaranteed win there either. And if it's going to be that way, obviously, again, you return a lot of players doesn't necessarily mean you're better. So if you're still not quite able to dominate the line of scrimmage, if this is a Clemson team that is still somehow, despite all the talent they have up front, giving up 300 yards to a team like the Citadel. I mean, we haven't seen it yet in terms of that defense taking its play up to another level. And we haven't seen yet, obviously, who's going to be the running back and what that's going to look like. I mean, we've got heard a lot of really positive things about Adam Randall and his transition there, but it still does, until you've seen it, sound a little risky to take a receiver and put him at running back and see how that goes. Obviously, you got a couple of young guys, and Gideon Davidson and David Eziomume, who maybe can rise to the occasion. We haven't seen that yet. And so there are slight cracks that we haven't seen filled yet. And so I would say 9-3, and obviously the ceiling is much higher than that.
Talk to me real quick, if you don't mind, about Adam Randall. Obviously, he's kind of been discussed quite a bit as likely RB1. The narrative, former wide receiver, has kind of been the big discussion about him. Still waiting to see what Gideon Davidson's going to shape into at the RB2. Does he ultimately take that job? We'll find out. But from what we've seen, from what we've heard, from what we know, and from what the XP has been about Adam Randall, what is the ceiling and floor for him as RB1?
Yeah, I mean, if he's as natural as Dabo Swinney makes him sound, then he's a guy, maybe he's a 1,000-yard rusher. I mean, I don't know if that's actually the case, but, I even asked Dabo last week because I was just wondering, this is a big, strong guy. I mean, he's 6'2", 237 pounds right now. but he's always been an oversized receiver. This isn't a guy who plays, between the tackles very much. How does Dabo feel about him in short yardage situations? And he was very confident in his reply to me, saying, I trust Adam Randall in every situation. This is a complete player. And again, I don't know what I believe until I see it, because I haven't seen it yet. But if he's a guy who can run between the tackles, push forward for 2 or 3 yards when the gap isn't quite there, then that's obviously a very useful player. Obviously, he's going to give you really great matchups against linebackers in passing situations, because they're not used to going against a running back like this who has that type of savvy as a route runner. And then we saw the speed against Texas, that 41-yard burst he had, obviously the kick return against SMU. So, Dabo Swinney says unquestioned leader, a tone setter, a guy who's really been, having a really good, obviously, spring and now fall camp. But again, we got to see it, because we just haven't really on a consistent basis with him yet. Only 4 carries for 41 yards at Texas, and that's his entire career. So still a lot of intrigue there.
As far as the importance of whether it's Adam Randall or Gideon or whoever's going to end up being the guy, how important do you think a reliable run game is for Cade Klubnik? I know when you have a talent like Cade Klubnik, who is being talked about as a potential Heisman before the season starts, some people start to get into a comfort zone, a belief that, well, that guy, we're going to lean on that guy. Cade's just going to spin it for 350 and 4 touchdowns every game. But a lot of these guys at quarterback, especially if they are going to be a more passer than runner, although we know Cade can boogie a little bit, the run game becomes increasingly important. One of the things I've told Carolina fans is if Lenoris doesn't live up to his potential, a large part of that may be because there's not a great run game for the Gamecocks, and so defenses can kind of tee off a little bit. How important to Cade Klubnik will it be for Clemson to get a run game going and staying consistent?
Yeah, I mean, for the layman to explain, obviously the numbers in the box are always important as far as the run. And Garrett Riley, he calls this scheme the dirt raid, and he likes to establish the run because he wants to get defenses in stressful situations where you have to bring numbers into the box, that you can't just sit back and try to put your safeties out of the box, or have, like you said, teeing off your edge rushers blitz and have no gap discipline and just bring everybody at the quarterback. You don't want to give the defense an easier kind of problem to solve in terms of what they're trying to head off. And so that's important. I mean, I think Clemson, even if they have just an okay run game, has a good offense. But I think if you have a good to great run game, you have an amazing offense. I mean, in terms of the different dimensions you have, in terms of that receiver core with Williams and Wesco and Moore and Tyler Brown and Tristan Smith, and then having a quarterback like Cade Klubnik that can run, and if you can add in then a running back who can take the ball and boogie for about 50 yards, that really creates a lot of stress on defense. They just don't know what they're going to get hit with at any moment. So now it's very important to have a multifaceted attack, and that's what Garrett Riley wants to have with that, again, quote-unquote, dirt raid.
We are talking to John Blau of the Post and Courier here on the Rob Brown Show and the Fan Upstate. Obviously, John, you cover Clemson, I do as well, but via doing so, exposed to the rest of the Atlantic Coast Conference. I've got to take that. I actually think this conference is better than it's given credit for. I think Georgia Tech under Brent Key might have the best Georgia Tech team we've ever seen. People are forgetting the Duke Blue Devils won 9 games last year. Whether that was Manny Diaz or Mike Elko leaving the cupboard stocked, up for debate. Miller Moss to Louisville. That team might score 50 a game with the air it out offense. I think this conference is better than it's given credit for. What are your overall expectations of the ACC, and could it end up potentially presenting maybe a little bit better of a challenge for Clemson to go claim the crown, to repeat as champs, than most folks nationally are giving it credit for?
Yeah, I think you mentioned a couple of the programs that are really trending in the right direction. Georgia Tech, gave Georgia a heck of a ball game at the end of last year. They seem to really be moving in the right direction. Obviously, you got Haynes in the backfield and Haynes King at quarterback, 2 really good players there. You have, obviously, Louisville, like you said, having some of their best years, especially offensively, since Jeff Brom got there, a really good football coach. They seem to be rising. And again, those are 2 teams you have to play on the road. And then you have like you said with Duke, I mean, that's a sneaky program. I mean, they gave Clemson some issues, a couple years ago on the road in the opener. But they bring in Mensa, the quarterback from Tulane. They've got some players. Obviously, Stoll, recruit from Clemson. Bryce Davis, the defensive end. You got Syracuse, obviously, that beat Miami late in the season, that allowed Clemson to go to the ACC title game. You got SMU, obviously bringing back Jennings at quarterback. Got to see what kind of everything else is. They turned over a lot in that roster, but obviously Lashley has shown an ability to use the transfer portal and build that program up to a pretty good level. So yeah, it's not a cakewalk on that schedule. If you really look at it, it's a schedule that absolutely there could be some teams on there that maybe you looked at the beginning of the year, you thought Clemson could easily beat, but it might actually turn out to be a ball game. So yeah, the ACC in a pretty good spot right now. It's just not, obviously with Florida State so up and down, Miami not quite getting back to what Miami was yet. There's some questions there, but I think it's a much deeper conference than it's been in recent years.
John Blau from the Post and Courier joins us every Monday at 8:40 a.m. to talk a little Clemson athletics. John, we do this 2 more times, and then we're setting up football games, my man. It's here. It is upon us. Catch some naps, get some siestas, settled in, because football's upon us, big dog.
Yeah, I think the naps are over. I think we're already over nap time, but I'll see if I can squeeze one in, like you said. I appreciate it, Rob.
It's the effort that counts. John Blau, Post and Courier, joins us every Monday at 8:40 to talk Clemson sports. Very grateful that he does. Speaking of, we have already asked the question. We will get some of your answers coming up in the next segment, in the next hour. What is, ladies and gentlemen, your realistic ceiling and realistic floor for your football team in 2025? John and I, and Lonzo, I think everybody agrees, undefeated national champion for Clemson is the roof. What's the floor? What's the worst it can be? Same for South Carolina. We talk about that in the next hour of the show. Now, the ceiling for this sports flash, greatest sports flash of all time.
The floor, though, is what you're going to get. The Atlanta Braves offense was clicking over the weekend as they took 4 of 5 against Miami and scored at least 7 in all 4 wins. Series was wrapped with a 7-1 victory yesterday with 9 hits, including homers from Ozuna, Olsen, and Harris second, and doubles from Profar, Albies, and Harris second. Former South Carolina Gamecock A.J. Wilson keeps making WNBA history in a 94-86 win over the Sun. Wilson finished with 32 points and 20 rebounds, becoming the first WNBA player to record a 30-20 double-double. Dolphins and Bears finished their first preseason game in a 24-24 tie. Former Longhorn consistency, I had to do it that way, Longhorn. Quinn Ewers went 5 of 18 for 91 yards, and Zach Wilson went 5 of 9 for 96, while starter Tua Tagovailoa went 5 of 6 for 27. Tyson Bagent got the start for Chicago, going 13 of 19. Over the mountains and through the valleys, all is well.
Going undefeated and winning the Natty would be the greatest season ever, considering how much NIL and transfer portal and college football. I mean,
it would be the greatest season ever because it hasn't been done, right?
Not in the playoff era.
Right. So,
But does that make it the greatest season ever? That could be the most accomplished season ever.
be the greatest season ever for Clemson. Because they've already won national championships. They went undefeated with the 15, right? But they've never won undefeated. It would be historic because no one's done it yet.
The Rob Brown Show back on your radio. It's the Fan Upstate. Rob Brown, the great one, Lonzo, and you. 844-326-3663. 844-FANFONE is the number if you want to jump in on the show. You can start on the Hub City Spartanburger text line. That number I just gave you multiple times, that's the one, 844-326-3663. Shoot us a text. We'll read them on the air. Got a handful so far. We will address those coming up in just a few minutes. You can also use that exact same phone number to call the radio program, 844-FANFONE. We will put you on the air. You can also get at us on Twitter if you are a Twitterer, at The Fan Upstate, at The Rob Brown Show, at Lonzo on Word. You can get at us on Facebook by searching and subscribing to The Fan Upstate. Same on YouTube, and the same for both The Rob Brown Show and The Fan Upstate. You search and subscribe to The Fan Upstate. You're not only getting alerts and notifications when this show goes live every weekday from 6 to 10 a.m., but also when Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson goes live every afternoon from 3 until 7 o'clock in the evening time. And if you got something a little more long format you want to get at us, the email address is open as well, rob.brown@thefanupstate.com. All the different ways for you to get in touch with us here on the show this and every morning. A little bit of spring cleaning and a brief reminder that Zoe and I are out on Thursday and Friday. I will be on vacation. Lonzo will be doing DIY work, getting the floor done, which is this the last round of flooring?
It is.
Nice. So we will be out on Thursday and Friday, and then we will be back next Monday, and we'll be at that point well inside of just 2 weeks remaining until college football season. So we are talking some college football here on the radio program this AM. I do have a few more things that I'd like to get into. We'll talk a little NASCAR coming up on the radio show. We'll talk a little baseball coming up on the radio show. But, of course, college football is king round here. So let's keep rolling with it, shall we? Let us begin with a question that I asked all of you in the last hour of the show. I will ask it again of you here. What is the realistic ceiling and floor for Clemson and South Carolina. We talked a little bit about Clemson's. We had John Blau with the Post and Courier joining us in the last segment of the show. He said the realistic ceiling, and I think this is probably going to be between these two teams, the one universal take. The realistic ceiling is an undefeated national championship. The floor, I think, is 8-4. I think you could end up realistically being 8-4. Do I think that's going to happen? No, I don't. But South Carolina and LSU are both realistic losses this year. And then you have scattered across the rest of the Clemson regular season schedule. You are also going to have to deal with a road trip to Atlanta for Georgia Tech, who John mentioned by name. You are going to have to visit North Carolina. Again, I don't foresee good things for the Heels under the hoodie, but a lot of people, including the great Lonzo, do. You are going to have to deal with SMU, then Duke, then Florida State, back to back to back, coming to the crib. And then you've got to go on the road to Louisville. I could see 2-1 through that stretch and any combination of 2 wins, 1 losses through that stretch. And then don't forget, again, as we mentioned, South Carolina as the end cap. I think 8-4 is very much a possibility. And I will say, if 8-4 with this team and the expectations were to come to fruition, I would say 8-4 begins a very interesting offseason conversation, because I do think that this year is that referendum that we've been waiting on as to whether or not Dabo's way is viable in 2025 and moving forward in the college football landscape. I'm not saying that the referendum fails if it is anything shy of a national championship this season. I am saying 8-4, 9-3, even if the conference is better than a lot of people are giving it credit for being this year, which I also think is true. I think 8-4, 9-3, it would be fair to say the referendum does not pass. And there needs to be a conversation about what happens moving forward at this school, because I do think this year specifically, if Clemson falls out of that discussion, effectively needing an ACC championship, needing an ACC championship, but needing an ACC championship predominantly and primarily to get into the playoffs last year, with a 9-3 regular season record last year. If that was to be repeated this year and Clemson needed a way in via ACC title and gets punked in round 1, if the same results from last year were to happen this year with Cade Klubnik, with the wide receiver core that is allegedly back to where it was in the championship dynasty era of Clemson, then I think the people asking, is Dabo's way still viable? I think they would have a point. I think that question would become more justified than it's been in years gone by. So, 10-2, you get your way in, even if you don't win the ACC title. I think then it becomes what happens in the playoffs. You get smoked again, different discussion. So what could lead to that? Kane, as I'm saying that, asked the question in the chat, what would be the main reason they get to 8-4 if they end up there? Start with the easy ones. Losses to LSU and South Carolina. I think LSU's fine this year. That being said, I think LSU enters the season with more pressure on them than Clemson has. I think LSU enters this season with a head coach in Brian Kelly who knows. 8-4, I don't know if 7-5 or worse gets Brian Kelly fired. Outright, straight up, Jimbo Fisher, you're gone. Doesn't matter how much money we owe you. You got to go. 8-4, 9-3, I think may largely depend on the results of the conference. Is it possible for a 9-3 LSU team to end up in a Southeastern Conference championship game? Yeah, it depends on what they do in the conference and all that. But I think that Brian Kelly, to some degree, knows that anything less than 8-4 gets him fired. Anything from 8-4 to 10-2 might get him on the hot seat depending on how the conference plays out. And probably anything less than a playoff berth gets him on the hot seat, to be honest with you. So I think they come in with a little bit more pressure than Dabo has on them at Clemson, if you believe there's any on Dabo at Clemson. And then there's South Carolina at the end of the year, which, again, I've got questions about South Carolina. We're going to talk about them coming up in a minute as well. Run game, defense, interior offensive line, all question marks. But they had the same question marks last year, and they got them. They sniped them at the end. Losses to both of those teams, and then you go, all right, but where's the other two of the 4 in 8-4? You got to go on the road to Georgia Tech. I think this is going to be the best Georgia Tech team of all time. This is a Georgia Tech team that 2 years ago in Atlanta gave Clemson all they wanted and a little bit more. This is the same Georgia Tech team that, as John Blau pointed out, and I don't think I have to point out to anybody, 8 overtimes against Georgia last year, a team that competed for the SEC championship game. They took them to 8 OTs last year. If you are sleeping on the rambling wreck of Georgia Tech, that's on you and nobody else. But that's not the only threat. You have got Georgia Tech. You have got the, I believe, absolute wild card that is North Carolina. I don't have faith in them. Lonzo does. Who's right? I don't know. We're going to find out. But you got to go to North Carolina. You are at Chapel Hill this year. You've got a North Carolina squad that at that point will have played 2 home and 2 away against TCU, Charlotte, Richmond, and UCF, with Charlotte and UCF both being on the road. At that point in the season, Clemson will have played LSU and Georgia Tech. And hey, by the way, while I do not think that this year they are going to be dogs, the folks up in upstate New York are very excited about the trajectory of Syracuse under Fran Brown. And I think it's fair for them to have mild optimism right now. That's who you're playing before UNC has their first true test in BT Dubs, as mentioned, at their crib. Then you've got SMU coming to your house. And the week after that, then a bye week, then the week after that, Duke coming to your house, then Florida State coming to your house, and then you got to go to Louisville. That is a more dangerous 4-game stretch than I think anybody is giving it credit for being. SMU took you to the wire last year in the ACC title game. Duke is coming off of perhaps their best season in maybe football history at all, going 9-3 last year. Again, I think it's fair to ask the question, did they do that because Mike Elko left the cupboard bare, or is Manny Diaz really the guy? Did he get humbled enough during his time at Miami that he's put 2 and 2 together and got 4? I don't know. Then you've got Florida State, a team that I don't think is back yet. But as I mentioned earlier, Las Vegas has set the over-under win total for FSU at 8.5. That means Vegas believes this team's either 8-4 or 9-3 at the end of the year. And then you got to go to Louisville. And again, Louisville's offensive line, a lot of questions about it, but Miller Moss coming over, they've got high expectations. The worst possible outcome for Clemson is a loss to LSU to open, a loss to South Carolina to close, and then 2 losses between at Georgia Tech, at North Carolina, home for SMU, Duke, Florida State, and at Louisville. You're telling me there's zero worlds where Clemson drops 2 of those? Because I'm telling you there is. Especially in that SMU, Duke, Florida State, Louisville stretch. Are you 1,000% dialed in to all 4 of those teams? Because, again, I know it's kind of a football cliche, but cliches are cliches for a reason. You're everybody's Super Bowl this year. You are the team that if Georgia Tech takes you down, they go, that's it, we up. If SMU takes you down, they go, that's what should have been last year. It's our conference now. If Duke takes you down, again, by the way, If Duke takes you down, Duke looks and they go, this is not a fad. This is not an apparition. This is not an anomaly. We're good at football now. If Florida State takes you down, they go, we so bleeping back, baby. If Louisville takes you down, they go, we're ACC now. It's our conference now. You're everybody's Super Bowl. So between Tech, UNC, Duke, FSU, and Louisville, 5 games. You're telling me there's not a world where Clemson goes 3-2? I'm not comfortable saying there's no possibility that you don't go 3-2 through those 5. And if that happens, I very much think Clemson's 8-4 is on the table. It won't be as bad as Florida State's 2-10 last year, but I do think it would be a spot where the Clemson higher-ups could reasonably and realistically say, we gotta modernize a little bit here. We got to pick it up. We got to do something different, whether it's better usage of NIL, better usage of the portal, whatever justification you want to have. Going 3-2 through those 5 with losses to LSU and South Carolina on both ends of the schedule, I think 8-4 is a very realistic floor for this team. The honest take is 7-5 could be a realistic outcome. Now, I do not think there's a world in which Clemson goes 2-3 through that middle 5. But I think there's a realistic world where they go 3-2 through that middle 5. And if that's the case, with bookend L's to LSU and South Carolina, you're in a tough spot. And I think there's some tough offseason conversations around the Clemson Tigers. But again, we are talking right now before anybody starts going, Rob's a Clemson hater. No, I'm not. I am telling you what the worst possible outcome is. And I'm going to tell you when we come back in the next segment what I think the worst possible outcome for South Carolina is. Now, we're going to have the conversation about the Gamecocks on both ends, because I think it's a relatively universal take that Clemson's ceiling is undefeated national champions. That's the ceiling. Tough to do, possible. I do not think that is the roof for South Carolina. I do not think undefeated, even in the regular season, is in the cards for the Gamecocks. But how good can they be? And worse, how bad can they be if things were to hit the floor? I'll give you my thoughts. I'm looking for yours. 844-326-3663. Shoot us a text to that number with your ceiling and floor. Shoot us a call. We'll put you on the air. All that and more coming up when the Rob Brown Show continues next on the Fan Upstate. All right, dudes and dudettes, be right back. Stay right there for me. The Rob Brown Show back on your radio. It's the Fan Upstate. I have asked for your realistic ceiling and floor expectations for the Clemson Tigers and the Gamecocks of South Carolina. What are your thoughts on the best and the worst that these two teams can do? Realistic ceiling for Clemson, undefeated national championship. However, realistic floor for Clemson, I think, is 8-4 and miss out on the ACC title game and playoffs entirely. I think that is absolutely in play. Do I think they are better than everybody else in the ACC? Yes. Do I think the ACC is as pathetic as it's being made to sound by a lot of folks? No, I do not. I think it's better than it's being given credit for, and I think there's some tough games down the line for Clemson. Let's do the Gamecocks of South Carolina now. Realistic ceiling for this team, I genuinely think, is probably 10-2. Now, 10-2, is it good enough to get into an SEC championship game? I don't know the answer to that, and I've given my reason why. I think this might be the best year of SEC football in the history of SEC football, like reasonably and realistically. I think Alabama is a national championship contender. I think Auburn, Hugh Freeze's back is against the wall. They could be 8-4, they could be 9-3, they could also be 5-7. Florida, I have bought into the DJ Lagway hype. I feel very similar about DJ Lagway to the way that I feel about Lenora Sellers. He could be a program-changing quarterback. That team could be 10-2, that team could be 6-6. Georgia, national championship contender. LSU, that probably is the most wide-ranging spectrum of opinions in the Southeastern Conference. I think LSU on paper has the talent to be 12-0 and playing for an SEC title. I also do have zero trust in Brian Kelly. I have not finished it yet, but I started watching, and if you haven't, it's worth watching in my opinion. I started watching the Any Given Saturday documentary on Netflix a few days ago. I am blown away by Brian Kelly in this documentary. Not in a good way. I am blown away by Brian Kelly because this is a dude about whomst there is a narrative built. The narrative is Brian Kelly is a coach who knows ball, is a coach who is good at coaching ball, but is an absolute hard ass who makes it impossible to like him. There is a definite line between a hard ass coach who makes it easy to like him and a coach that makes it real tough to like him. There are guys like Tom Coughlin. We all remember the takes about Tom Coughlin, who brought that kind of old school blue collar, gruff ex-Armed Forces vet style coaching, right? He's gonna yell, he's gonna scream, he's gonna be real gruff. But he convinces you that he does all that because he's gonna bring the best out of you. I was watching, again, going back to it, I was watching the SEC documentary on Netflix, and the conveniently and coincidentally enough for me, the South Carolina and Texas A&M stories were kind of paired up with each other. And they did a lot on Mike Elko. And Mike Elko, former head coach at Duke, now at Texas A&M, he's kind of like that, right? He's kind of that on the field. He's kind of hard-assed. In fact, they had one scene in particular where Elko was running a practice and Shamar Stewart, the guy who got drafted by the Bengals in the first round, their defensive end, they didn't really give any context to what the play was. The impression I got via context clues was that Mike had them practicing a hurry-up defense, right? Sub in, sub out, get on the field, get off of it. And Stewart, I guess, didn't hustle enough for Elko. So Elko blew the whistle, told them, get back on the sideline and run it again. And he goes, Stewart, I can do this all day. And not like in a fun Captain America way. I mean in a, I will run you until you vomit if you don't do it the way I want it done kind of way. And he's like, he's very much a hard ass. But then they kind of provided the counter narrative to that in that they showed Elko walking over to the sideline. And they had two of the players standing over there, sipping on a couple of Gatorade bottles. And he walks up to them, and you could tell it was half jokey, half get it in gear. But he walks up and he's like, hey, boys, can I get you anything? Maybe, I don't know, like a fruity drink with some umbrellas in it. Maybe a bigger umbrella gets you some shade going. And the fellas kind of laughed, and Elko kind of laughed. But you could also tell he was making a point that you guys are out here acting soft right now, and we don't need that. That's the merit of a hard ass, but that makes himself likable. When that guy gets on you, you go, all right, he's trying to make me better. He's trying to point out that I'm coming up short in whatever aspect of the game we're talking about. Versus Brian Kelly, who, if you watch the LSU episode, you walk away going, yeah, my kid's not playing for that guy. Like, are you kidding me? That guy's a butthole. Absolutely not. No chance. Brian Kelly's back's against the wall.
Would you prefer they be coddled? I mean, is it that extreme? Because it just sounds like coaching to me. But, again, I'm older, and that kind of thing was more acceptable back in my day.
It probably was. But, again, I think there is a way to be a gruff, tough coach without being a jackass, man. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I will tell you that the toughest, hardest-nosed coach I ever had, Don Arthur, did not make me a better player or person. You know what he made me? A person who did not want to interact with my coach. Now, where everybody's different and everybody responds differently, and I'm sure there are some kids who would respond better to Brian Kelly than, I don't know, Pete Carroll, right? But is he getting the best out of LSU the last couple of years? I don't think so. That's why he's on the hot seat, right?
What if he was?
Then we're not having this conversation.
What I'm saying is, how LSU ended up? What if that is the best that anyone could have gotten out of the players?
I don't know the answer, and I don't know that we can know that he is or isn't. Here's what I can tell you. What I can tell you is, over the last 3 years, LSU on paper shoulda, coulda, woulda competed with everybody in the SEC, and they just have repeatedly not done that. And when you are getting paid what Brian Kelly is getting paid, to not even be in the mix is just not good enough. It's just not. So I found that very interesting. But circling it back around to South Carolina, because I've asked the question ceiling and floor for the Gamecocks.
Looking at the schedule, this is really hard to think that they're going to be anything less than at least 8 wins. I mean, there's a stretch where they got to go LSU, Oklahoma, and Alabama, but they should be undefeated going against LSU.
Reaching the ceiling, which I think the ceiling is 10-2. Reaching the ceiling requires 5-0 to start the season. Anything less than 5-0, drop a win off the final total. 10-2 is the ceiling. If they lose to Virginia Tech, that ceiling immediately falls to 9-3.
And I would say, for me, covering this team for a really, really long time, I don't remember the schedule being this easy the first 5 games. And there's no Georgia.
This is what I've been saying for a while. Virginia Tech in Atlanta, it is considered a home game. It's not. That's a road game at Atlanta. Now, granted, I think South Carolina fans will have twice the fans that Virginia Tech has in that stadium. It will be a de facto home game. But Virginia Tech out of the gate in Atlanta, back home for SC State and Vanderbilt in week 3. Then you're on the road at Missouri, back home for Kentucky, with the knowledge that both of those games have become, I think, over the last couple of years, baby rivalries, right? Like, they're not full-fledged true blue rivalries, but there's a little more under the surface than just South Carolina, Missouri, South Carolina, Kentucky. You all know about the coaching stuff with Mark Stoops at Kentucky. Mizzou's given South Carolina more than they wanted the last couple of years. If you want 10-2, honestly, if you want 9-3, you better be 5-0 through the first 5. Like, you better be 5-0. And you at that point, South Carolina ought to be flirting, if not having accomplished, a top 10 ranking at that point in the season at 5-0.
Especially with their preseason ranking already. I know it's a coach's poll, but still is fairly high. So, yeah, if you're undefeated at that point, for sure they would be in the top 10.
Flirting, if not inside the top 10. And then, because Lonzo said, I don't remember the first 5 being that easy. I don't disagree. I also don't remember the last 7 being that tough. You are talking on the road at LSU. Even if LSU ain't what LSU's supposed to be, any game in Death Valley is a tough game. That is the most difficult place to play college football as a road team in college football. Then there's Oklahoma. Again, probably another one of those SEC teams where there is a full spectrum of expectations. I had people at SEC Media Days telling me that they fully expected the Schooner is going to be pulling up to Atlanta in the SEC title game. And then I had other folks saying Brent Venables is one step ahead of his capability, not a good HC. That team's going 6-6. I don't know which one we get. If I'm a South Carolina fan, I'm very much hoping that Oklahoma ain't what the top-end expectation dudes think they're going to be. Then you got Alabama. I firmly believe Alabama is an SEC championship threat this year. I firmly believe with, again, it may entirely, even more so than South Carolina with Lenora Sellers. Alabama's success or failure may be up to whether or not they got it right with Ty Simpson at quarterback. If he's that dude, Bama's a national championship threat. If he ain't that dude, Bama's 8-4, 9-3. But little revenge game there for South Carolina. Then you're at Ole Miss. I do not think that Ole Miss is an SEC championship caliber team this year. But if you sleep on Ole Miss, as South Carolina has felt the repercussions of in a couple of years gone by, Ole Miss is not a bad football team. They ain't Georgia, they ain't Texas, but they're not a bad football team behind Lane Kiffin. And if that's not enough, after Bama, Ole Miss, and A&M, you got to circle it back around. After Bama and Ole Miss, you got to circle it back around and go down to the compound. And as has been pointed out, Texas A&M and South Carolina have been swapping home victories for a while now. The home team wins this game. Not historically, but over the past handful of years, the team playing at home has won this game. There's 4 games: LSU, Oklahoma, Alabama, Ole Miss, and A&M. Sorry, I'm bad at math. 5 games. I'm bad at counting, apparently. 5 games in a row that South Carolina will either be the dog or a slightest of slight favorites in. I think there is, and I mean this, there is as much potential for that team to go 0-5 in that stretch as there is for that team to go 5-0. Any combination of results would not surprise me. 0-5, 5-0, 4-1, 1-4, 3-2, 2-3. Any combination of results would not shock me through that stretch today on August 11th. And then you wrap it up with Clemson. To me, the ceiling for South Carolina is 10-2. That is way too tough of a back end of the schedule not to drop a couple. 10-2. The floor, and I mean this, the floor for South Carolina, the floor is 6-6. Like, the floor is you're bowl eligible. The floor, and that includes if you drop one or two of the first 5, and then you get hammered down that home stretch, you could be 6-6 and fighting for bowl eligibility. That's the floor for me. So, Gamecock fans, where are you? Realistic ceiling, realistic floor for your team. Clemson fans, you can keep your answers coming in as well. When we come back, we'll address your thoughts, and we'll wrap up the show. The Rob Brown Show on the Fan Upstate. Oh, I know what's wrong with me. Y'all be right back. We'll stay right there.
Shocking.
The Rob Brown Show back on your radio. The Fan Upstate wrapping up the Monday edition of the show. Quick spring cleaning for you. We are out on Thursday and Friday. I will be headed over to Charleston, South Carolina on a little short weekend vacation. The great one will be doing a little DIY work, shirtless and sweaty, fixing up the floor in the Bro Cave.
Hey, don't need those kind of dreams this early in the morning for people.
I get it. We are talking football on the show this morning. We have talked a little bit about some of the other stuff. NASCAR, Shane Van Gisbergen gets his 4th win of the season, 5th of his career. Another dub on another road course is good enough to, obviously he was already locked into the playoffs, good enough to propel him to the 2 seed in the playoffs, and that is likely where he will start. We'll talk about that. We are going to get into a discussion about, over the course of the week, the Atlanta Braves, a good, shockingly, good weekend series against the Miami Marlins. Not only do they take 4 out of the 5 against the Fish, but on top of that, the offense was alive. 7 runs or more in all 4 of those wins. So, very interested in what, if anything, comes out of that. Again, too late to make a run to the postseason at this point, although they are not mathematically eliminated. I would not be shocked to see them end up being eliminated at some point. So we'll see. Some point soon. Yes, obviously at some point. Everybody's eliminated at some point, but at some point soon. So, with all of that being said, today we dial in on football. We have had some reactions and overreactions from the NFL's first preseason weekend. We talked about the Carolina Panthers so far. Disappointing showing from Xavier Legette. Again, I don't judge the fighting because I don't know what the fight was about. I know that sometimes some dudes just got to get punched in the head. I'd wait till they took a football helmet off before I did it, but that's just me. I'm not a smart guy. XL, in a season where it is expected of him to prove that he was worth the draft pick, to prove that he is the dude that can be a trustworthy number 2 wide receiver, not how I wanted, expected, or needed his season to start off. We talked about Bryce Young. BY looked real good. It was against Cleveland's 2s. It was not into the face of Myles Garrett. But BY looked real good. Good control of the offense. A couple of good anticipatory passes. I was pretty pumped about what we saw out of Bryce Young. I think there's some positives there. Tedero McMillan looked like a dude in his debut for the Carolina Panthers. So I think there's some positives to talk about that. That being said, preseason is about evaluating where we are, not judging who the team is. We don't know that yet. I think there was some good, and I think there were some bad to take out of that. We talked about some of the other teams around the league as well, and we'll continue to over the next few days of football. Now, the college football discussion that we are having right now is we have begun the conversation, and we will pick it up tomorrow, and we will pick it up Wednesday before we go on vacation Thursday and Friday. I have asked the question, what is the realistic ceiling and floor for the 2025 version of your college football team? South Carolina, Clemson specifically. You Furman Wofford fans, you're welcome to chime in. You Georgia fans, you Florida State fans, you Miami fans, you're welcome to chime in as well. What's the realistic ceiling and floor for your football team? I have landed on these, then we'll get Lonzo's, and we'll respond to yours. For the Clemson Tigers, I think it is likely the one universal between most people who check in. undefeated national champions. 12-0 in the regular season, 13-0 after the ACC championship game, straight seeding this year, catch an opening round bye, win 3, bring home a trophy. I think that's the ceiling, and I don't have any issue with anybody who sets that as a realistic ceiling. The question mark for Clemson is the floor. It depends on where you stand in your belief about the ACC. If you think it is a down year for a bad conference, the expectation might be undefeated in conference, but then get hammered in the opening playoff game that they play. If you, like me, believe that perhaps this conference is a little bit underrated, a little bit undervalued for what it actually is, I think the floor could be as low as 8-4. And I do. I think 8-4 is a realistic possibility for Clemson this year. And it's got less to do with Clemson and more to do with perhaps being asleep on the rest of this conference. The over-under win total for Florida State is 8.5. That means Vegas thinks they could be a 9-win football team this year. Tech, probably the best Tech team we've ever seen. Duke, probably the best Duke team we've ever seen, and coming off of a year that they were 9-3 last year. Louisville, behind Miller Moss and Jeff Brom, could score 50 a game. Realistically, not like, haha, funny, Rob's exaggerating to make a point. I mean, reasonably, this team could average upwards of 42 points per game. There's some good North Carolina. I'm not up on Bill Belichick and the heels, but a lot of people, including the great one, are. I think it's a better conference than it's being given credit for. And if Clemson is asleep at the wheel for 2 or 3 of those games, and then you add in LSU coming into this year with ridiculously high expectations for Brian Kelly, South Carolina coming into the year with realistic high expectations for Lenora Sellers in the offense this year. If those teams reach their ceiling, if Duke and Louisville and UNC and Florida State and whoever else all hit their ceiling, I think 8-4 is on the table for Clemson. For South Carolina, ceiling for me is 10-2 and competing for an SEC championship. Now, a lot of that is going to depend on what other teams in the conference hit their roofs, what other teams in the conference end up with that 10-2, 9-3, 11-1 mark. If Texas hits their ceiling, if Georgia hits their ceiling, there's your SEC championship game. But if they don't, could the door be open for South Carolina? I think it's an improbable, though not impossible, yes. I think the ceiling's 10-2. The floor for South Carolina is 6-6. The floor is you drop one of those first 5, Mizzou, Kentucky, Virginia Tech. You drop one of those first 5, and then you just don't live up to your expectations in what is, I believe, the most difficult final 7 weeks in all of college football. If you don't have a run game, if the interior offensive line is bad, if the defense is worse than it was last year, I think 6-6 is very in play. Lonzo, for Clemson and South Carolina, realistic ceiling and floor.
All right, for Clemson, I agree with you. The ceiling is the national championship. I think the floor is 3 losses. I think they could very well lose their bookends, and then somewhere in the middle, a team that they shouldn't lose to, they'll lose. And I think really it comes down to Cade Klubnik. And that's really what it's come down to the last couple of years. If Cade has improved as much as it seems like he has, they should be good. If not, they may lose some games they shouldn't lose. As far as Carolina goes, I think the ceiling is 9 wins. And I go with 7 wins as the floor.
7 is the floor.
Yes.
For South Carolina.
Yes.
Which
is enough to keep Shane Beamer there.
I think 7-5 would be for Shano. I think 7-5 would be you're not on the hot seat, but we have to see upward trajectory again next year, or you will be. Would that be fair? Like 7-5 followed up by another 7-5 season.
Well, if he doesn't go anywhere, he got another year of Lenore's, right? So you don't? I think he was a sophomore this year.
I'm saying I think he's going to the draft regardless.
No, he can't.
Yeah, he's played his obligatory 2. And he was on the team the year before that. Yeah, he's draft eligible.
I don't know.
Either way.
I thought you had to be a junior.
Either way.
In order to go to the draft.
No, he's eligible for next year's draft. He's a redshirt sophomore this year, meaning he's played his 2, and then this, like, going into
next
his third.
year,
Yeah.
as in 2026.
As in 2026. He's eligible for the draft. So you got, and that's also the part of the reason I've said a few times, this year Shane has to do something special because I think you've got South Carolina's Cam Newton in the fold, and if you don't do anything while you've got him on the roster, how do you expect me to believe you're going to do something when not Lenora Sellers is up next?
And now, the Rob Brown Show presents Twitter.
All right, time to jump around and find out what is Xing, and Rob will tell us why. The first thing that's Xing is Karrion Kross.
Karrion Kross Xing because he and Scarlett's contracts were not renewed by the WWE. Now, the question mark is work or shoot, because him and Scarlett are out there and they're talking about, yeah, we've always been fighters. We're moving on to the next chapter. And Karrion Kross even put up
bookings.
even put up a thing about his booking. But I would also say there has been so much smoke about this potentially being just a storyline to invoke the debut of Killer Kross, which is, I think, what fans have been asking for. I don't know is the answer. I will simply say that I think Killer Kross is exactly what that company needs right now, and if they do not bring that guy in, I think it would be a waste.
All right, the next thing is Xing is New Heights.
Obviously, the podcast, produced, directed, and executed by the Kelsey brothers, has been rapidly gaining. I don't know why they're Xing. I'm going to assume they just signed a big deal to move it somewhere because that's what everybody's doing.
They're on hiatus, which they do whenever training camp starts for Travis, but they just put a special guest coming up this Wednesday, and there's a silhouette in between the two that looks awful lot like this very famous pop star. Just saying.
Very famous pop star?
Yeah, who used to be a country star, and now she's a pop star, and just...
Oh,
you really didn't get what I meant. Okay.
No, but if you would have said country pop star, I would have maybe gone to Tay-Tay. But like pop star is, listen, there's pop stars
she ain't
littered.
been country in a decade, right?
No. But at the same time, you say pop star. Like if you had said female pop star, I maybe would have got there.
I did say she. I did say she.
Did you?
I did. It's okay. It's all right.
Anyway, point is, I'm down for a Tay-Tay New Heights.
If that indeed happens,
with Jason.
No, with both of them. This is one that they have in the
Gotcha.
They have in the can.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Now, I mean, I know radio does this. Something hard to believe. Will tease something, make you think it's one thing and it's not. It may not be her silhouette, but apparently people are believing it's gonna be, and I'm interested. All right, the next thing that's Xing is Venus and Jupiter.
I saw that trending earlier, but I was already on the air, so I didn't have the opportunity to click it.
They were visible in the night sky. I think still visible tonight.
Okay. I also know that over the next, not tonight, but I think the next 3 days starting tomorrow, the Persean meteor shower is going to hit its peak, which also means peak meteor shower viewing. Combined with a number of planets available, should make for some wonderful sky gazing, stargazing, if that's your thing. I'm off on Thursday. Yeah, Wednesday night, once we get over to Charleston, Lady and I already booked it. We're going to sit on the beach and watch the meteors hit for a while.
Well, the planets also have been aligned, so if you see people dancing naked, it's a normal thing. All right, the next thing that's Xing is the final thing that's Xing. Because Dana White was Xing, but we know why that's going on. Is Megan Fox.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Megan Fox closing the hood in that one Transformers movie was a transformative moment for your boy, but I don't know why she's Xing.
All right, I can't find out why, but it's Megan Fox, so I guess she doesn't have to do anything to be Xing.
I mean, she doesn't just be Megan Fox, but at the same time, I'm going to keep it a buck. The whole Machine Gun Kelly thing, nah, come on, Megan. There's better out there, like me. There's people like me out there, and you go
but
with
you're
MGK.
Not available, so she had to go with MGK.
I was when she was with MGK. All right, you missed. Megan, the point is, you missed your shot. You coulda had old Rob Brown, but you went with Machine Gun Kelly. I'm just saying, I'm off the table. I'm sorry to be a heartbreaker, Megan Fox. You had your opportunity. You didn't call. The phone didn't ring. You just have to live with that now, Megan Fox. I'm sorry. It wasn't that dramatic. All right, that's it for us. Thanks for being here. Hope you enjoyed the show. If you didn't, it's your own fault. Come back tomorrow. We will do more and better. At least We'll try to. I'm Rob. He's Lonzo. Have a great rest of your day. Do not drink and drive. I will punch you in the face. See you back here tomorrow for a brand new edition of The Rob Brown Show and the Fan Upstate. Later. Look, all of a sudden they got UFC on sale on ESPN. Phenomenal.
Oh, I was like on sale. Oh, okay. I get it now. Everything must go. Bye, bye, bye.
All right, dudes and dudettes, we got a jet. I got stuff to do. Appreciate you being here. You're all amazing people. Yes, Megan Fox, take that. You had your shot. You missed out. I don't know what to tell you. Another lucky lady said, I see that guy, and I'm jumping on it.
So to speak.
Wink. That's it for us. Have a great day. We'll see you back tomorrow. Goodbye.